Chapter 365. Nalan Wuxia looked cold and said, "Please note that you are a policeman now. You are not using your thinking to restore the truth of the case, but to find the criminals thinking to solve the case. You don't believe it, but does everyone else believe it? Then explain to me why this special symbol appeared at all 3 murder scenes. Are you going to tell me that the criminal likes to draw?" The policeman was speechless for a moment. Nalan Wuxia turned around and said to Qin Haodong, "Are there many people who know about this kind of soul-calming talisman? Can we use this symbol to lock the scope of the criminal to people who are proficient in Taoism?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "The soul-calming talisman is not a high-end Taoism skill. Many people can use it. Some local witches and gods can use it, and even some ordinary people who believe in Taoism can use it." "Oh. That's it." Nalan Wuxia originally wanted to open a breakthrough in the case from the soul-calming talisman, but now it seemed unlikely. Wang Jianfeng said, "The criminal has killed 3 people in a row. We don't know how many his targets are. What we need to do now is to find the connection between the 3 cases as soon as possible and find out his thinking and clues. First of all, we need to stop the next murder, and then arrest the criminal as soon as possible. Based on the current situation, the frequency of the criminal's crime is once every 3 days. We must hurry up and never let the 4th murder happen again." "Yes." Nalan Wuxia was the first to agree, but she had no clue how to solve the case. Next, the people present began to analyze the case in detail. Qin Haodong didn't understand these professional things. He had been sitting next to them with his eyes closed, thinking about something. More than an hour later, the meeting was finally over. Wang Jianfeng returned to the Municipal Public Security Bureau. He left the conference room with Nalan Wuxia, and the others began to busy themselves with the work at hand. Back in the office, Nalan Wuxia frowned and said, "Haodong, who do you think the criminal is? On the surface, they killed people and took their organs. It should be the work of an organ theft gang. But it didn't make sense from the point of view of the crime scene. The Yaowang Temple, the cruise ship, and the park were not places where organ theft gangs normally committed crimes, because the risk was too high and it was easy to be discovered, and they didn't need to do so. But if the criminal's purpose was not to steal organs, what was the motive of the crime? A crime of passion? That was unlikely. There were both men and women among the dead. Revenge? Then why did they steal other people's organs? Judging from their modus operandi, these people are very professional. It's definitely not as simple as destroying the corpse to vent their anger. Their goal is to take away the organs of the deceased." Qin Haodong sat on the sofa, sipping tea and appreciating Nalan Wuxia's serious expression. Some people said that men were the most handsome when they worked hard. In fact, women were the same. Nalan Wuxia now looked extraordinarily beautiful. For these 3 cases, from the time and location of the crime to the characteristics of the deceased, there is no connection at all. If it wasn't for the similarity in the way they cut the organs and the soul-suppressing talismans left at the crime scene, it would be impossible to link them together. Nalan Wuxia talked to herself for a long time, but Qin Haodong did not respond. She said angrily, "What are you doing? Why don't you help me solve the case? If this goes on, wrinkles will appear on my face." "What are you going to do then?" Qin Haodong was speechless. When Hu Shaoxian bound her chest, she said that he was the one who lost. Now Nalan Wuxia said this. It seemed that the more women liked him, the greater the responsibility on his shoulders. He put down the teacup and said, "In fact, you don't have to think so much. You don't know these things, but you can ask someone." "Ask someone? Who can I ask? Who knows these things?" Nalan Wuxia looked surprised. "Find the deceased. The deceased must know the characteristics of the criminals. Maybe they know more." Nalan Wuxia rolled her eyes at him and said, "You are still in the mood to make such a joke with me at this time." "I'm not joking." Qin Haodong spread out his hands and said, "Are you sure you're serious?" Nalan Wuxia stared at him and asked, I'm sure that the truth of this case will be revealed after I ask the deceased. Nalan Wuxia said with a look of disbelief, how can you ask the dead? Can your hypnosis make the dead talk? How can the dead talk? Even the most magical hypnosis can't. When Nalan Wuxia was about to go berserk, Qin Haodong said, the dead can't, but his soul can. I know a secret method called soul summoning. As long as the soul of the dead is there, I can ask some corresponding information. Normally, the soul of a person will leave the body after 3/4 of an hour, but these dead people are different. Because there is a soul-suppressing talisman next to them, it can ensure that their souls will not disperse for a long time. Oh my God, that works? Nalan Wuxia was overjoyed. She hugged Qin Haodong and kissed him hard. Qin Haodong licked his lips and put on an aggrieved expression. He cried, come on, a policewoman is molesting me. Molesting my ass. There was hope to solve the case, so Nalan Wuxia was in a good mood. She pushed Qin Haodong down on the desk behind him, and then pressed her plump body on him. She pressed her hands on his shoulders and said fiercely, I just want to molest you. What can you do? The posture of a man on top of a woman suddenly made Qin Haodong's heart grow wild. All kinds of complex mental cultivation methods instantly came to his mind. He couldn't help glancing at Nalan Wuxia's collar. The two peaks were tall and beautiful, and the scenery was infinite. He cooperated and said, what else can I do? I can only obey. They were having a good time. Suddenly, the door opened and a young policeman came in from outside. He was stunned by the scene in front of him. Captain. Captain. The young policeman originally wanted to report something to Nalan Wuxia, but in this situation, he suddenly seemed to be choked by the neck and couldn't say a word. The man on top of a woman on top of a man. According to his years of experience watching porn, this should be the beginning. I'm sorry, Captain. You go on. The young policeman hurriedly left and closed the door very considerately. Standing behind the door, he couldn't help but sigh, Captain is really a heroine. She is so bold. Just as the young policeman was imagining the scene in the room, Nalan Wuxia had already stood up again. She made this impulsive move completely because she was happy. She didn't expect that the door was not locked, and she was caught by her subordinates. It seemed that her image would be lost in the future. Qin Haodong was still lying on the desk. He said with a smile, heroine, shall we continue? Nalan Wuxia said with a red face, continue your ass. It's all your fault. You ruined my image. Qin Haodong said with a smile, can you blame me? It was you who wanted to molest me. I couldn't resist, so I had to obey. You have a glib tongue. Hurry up and solve the case with me. Nalan Wuxia said as she pulled Qin Haodong up from the table. They hurriedly left the office and rushed to the scene of the murder. Looking at their backs, the young policeman thought to himself, are they going to get a room? Nalan Wuxia took Qin Haodong to the Medicine King Temple in the east of the city. The incense here was good. There was an endless stream of pilgrims who came here to burn incense and pray for peace. The scene of the crime was an empty house in the Medicine King Temple. It used to be a woodshed in the temple. Later, the temple began to modernize and use water, electricity, and gas, so it was left empty. At this time, as the scene of the crime, a cordon had been set up outside, prohibiting the temple staff and pilgrims from entering. Nalan Wuxia took Qin Haodong through the cordon and came to the room. The crime scene was in the middle of the room. At this time, the body had been removed, leaving a pool of dried blood and marks left by the police when they investigated the scene. On the left side of the wall of the room, there was a bright red soul-calming figure. Haodong, try your method. Nalan Wuxia said eagerly. If the soul of the dead could speak, the case would almost be solved. Qin Haodong looked around and frowned slightly. He didn't feel the fluctuation of the soul in this room. Normally, if the soul of the dead was here, he should be able to feel it. He stepped in front of the soul-calming figure, moved his fingers, and shot a magic formula into the soul-calming figure. A strange scene happened. After the magic formula, the soul-calming figure quickly disappeared, but Qin Haodong still couldn't find the soul of the dead. Huh? What's going on? Qin Haodong looked confused. What happened, Haodong? Although Nalan Wuxia was a warrior, she knew nothing about magic skills. She didn't know what had happened. Qin Haodong frowned and said, the soul-calming figure is still there, but the soul of the dead is gone. The soul is gone? Nalan Wuxia was slightly stunned and said, is it possible that the soul has been transcended because of this temple? Qin Haodong said, that's impossible. If you want to transcend the soul, you must first break the soul-calming figure, but the soul-calming figure is intact. It shouldn't be the result of the temple transcending. Nalan Wuxia asked, then what should we do? Qin Haodong looked around the room again and firmly remembered the scene of the crime in his mind. Then he said, let's go to the next scene. They left the Yaowang temple and hurried to the river. The cruise ship where the murder had happened had been detained at the dock. They entered the ship and saw the soul-calming figure on the left side of the cabin. It looked exactly the same as the one in the Yaowang temple. Qin Haodong carefully looked at the soul-calming figure. Nalan Wuxia asked, Haodong, how is it? There is a soul fluctuation under the soul-calming figure, but there is no soul. Nalan Wuxia said, how could this be? Do you want to go to the third scene? It just happened last night. Maybe the soul is still there. Let's go. We have to go there anyway. Qin Haodong said and went to the forest park with Nalan Wuxia. At this time, the death scene was closed. The technicians sent by the crime squad were re-examining the scene. When they saw Nalan Wuxia, they quickly stood up and greeted her. You go ahead. We're just looking around. Nalan Wuxia turned back and said to Qin Haodong, what do you think of this? The murder scene was on the lawn of the park. There was a stone bench next to it, and the soul-calming figure was drawn on the stone bench. Qin Haodong squatted down to check it. Then he shook his head and said, the soul here is also gone. He stood up again, thought for a moment and said, there is only one possibility for this. The murderer not only took the organs of the deceased, but also his soul. First, he used the soul-calming figure to control the soul of the deceased. After cutting the organs, he took away the organs and the soul. Chapter 366. Nalan Wuxia asked, that is to say, the murderer must be a Taoist or someone proficient in magic? Qin Haodong shook his head and said, you can't say that. If ordinary people have a magic instrument that can take away souls, they can also take away the souls of the dead. Nalan Wuxia said, but what do ordinary people need souls for? Qin Haodong said, I don't know. Only the murderer himself knows. The two of them walked around the scene again and found nothing new. They could only return to the crime squad in disappointment. Haodong, think about it again. Is there no other way? This case was too strange to find too many clues in a short time. Nalan Wuxia had an inexplicable trust in Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong said with a wry smile, there is no suspect, and I can't find the souls of the dead. There is nothing I can do. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Come in. Nalan Wuxia said. As soon as the door opened, the young policeman came in from outside and glanced at them with a strange look. Nalan Wuxia asked, Shaoli, what's the matter? Shaoli said, Captain, the technical department has just finished the big data comparison of the 3 dead people. They asked me to report the results to you. Nalan Wuxia looked happy and said, give it to me. Shaoli quickly handed a stack of A4 paper to Nalan Wuxia and then turned to leave the office. Nalan Wuxia took the data and looked at it carefully. Qin Haodong also looked at it one by one. An hour later, Nalan Wuxia put down the materials in her hand and said with disappointment, the information of the 3 dead people has nothing in common. It's too difficult to find clues from them. Qin Haodong said, in fact, they have something in common. Did you see that all 3 people have been treated in Guangren Hospital in Jiangnan City? Really? Why didn't I find that? Nalan Wuxia took the 3 pieces of paper from Qin Haodong and found that all 3 people had been treated in Guangren Hospital. It wasn't that she didn't check carefully, but that there was too much information, too complicated and too trivial, so she didn't find the common point for a while. Qin Haodong had a strong spirit as a foundation, so it was easy for him to find the problem. Nalan Wuxia took the 3 pieces of paper and looked at them. She thought for a moment and said, "The way the murderer removed the organs of the deceased is very professional. He must have received training in this field." In addition, the 3 deceased have been treated in Guangren Hospital, which means that the murderer is probably in Guangren Hospital, or is a doctor in Guangren Hospital. Qin Haodong nodded and said, "I think so too." Nalan Wuxia said again, "But how can the doctors in the hospital know magic?" "I'm not too sure about that." Qin Haodong said, "Fortunately, we now have a little direction. Next, you can focus on Guangren Hospital." Nalan Wuxia thought for a moment and said with a sly smile, "Haodong, from these 3 cases, we can see that the murderer is very cunning. If we enter the hospital rashly, it is likely to arouse his vigilance. So you are the best person to do this." Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "How can I do that? I'm not a policeman, and I don't know how to investigate and solve cases." Nalan Wuxia said, "Why not? Although you are not a policeman, you just behaved more professionally than a professional policeman like me. You are the most suitable person to go. You can pretend to be a doctor and sneak into Guangren Hospital. Maybe you can find the murderer then. But you know, after the incident of traditional Chinese medicine some time ago, I am now a little famous in Jiangnan City. If I enter the hospital rashly, it will also arouse suspicion." Nalan Wuxia said, "It doesn't matter. The police can cooperate with you and get you another identity. As for your appearance, I believe you can handle it yourself. This can't be done. I am a doctor, and I have a lot to do. I know you are a doctor, so I let you sneak into the hospital. After you go in, you can also be a doctor and treat people." But Qin Haodong still wanted to refuse, but at this time, Nalan Wuxia's face changed. She said, "You can help Lin Momo so much. How can you refuse to do something for me? If you don't agree to go undercover, I will now sue you for molesting me. I will arrest you and send you to prison. Anyway, I have witnesses." Qin Haodong said with black lines on his face, "Sister, can you be reasonable? It was you who took advantage of me just now, okay? I won't be reasonable. I took advantage of you. What do you think?" Nalan Wuxia said angrily. She rushed up again, pressed Qin Haodong down on the desk, and then kissed him hard. "Captain, there are a few materials I forgot to give you." At this moment, Shaoli rushed in again. When he saw the scene in front of him, he dropped the materials in his hand and turned to run. Nalan Wuxia climbed up from Qin Haodong's body. She was embarrassed and shy. Her cheeks were red, and she looked more and more beautiful. Qin Haodong stood up and said with an innocent face, "Look, you have been seen again. My innocence has been ruined by you." "I haven't mentioned innocence yet." "What innocence do you have?" Nalan Wuxia said, "Don't talk nonsense. Just tell me whether you will help me or not." Seeing that the female Tyrannosaurus was about to lose her temper again, Qin Haodong quickly said, "Yes, I will go to Guangren Hospital to be an undercover doctor, okay? That's more like it." Nalan Wuxia walked in front of Qin Haodong, reached out to hold his chin, and said, "Do a good job, and you will be rewarded after it is done." At this time, the distance between the two was less than 20 centimeters, and they could hear each other's breath. Looking at the extremely beautiful face in front of him, Qin Haodong couldn't help but say, "What benefits? Do you want to have sex with me?" Nalan Wuxia took another small step forward, and her delicate red lips almost kissed Qin Haodong's face. She said, "Okay, it's a deal. As long as the case is solved, I will have sex with you. You can't be a coward then." Qin Haodong was indeed a coward, and he was a coward now. He quickly said, "Forget it. It's every citizen's duty and honor to help the police solve the case. How can I ask for a reward? I know you don't have the guts. Nalan Wuxia said with some hidden bitterness. As the eldest daughter of the Nalan family, she had already expressed her feelings clearly, but the guy in front of her was always indifferent, which really annoyed her. She returned to her desk and said, "Tell me, what name are you going to use? I'll ask someone to make an identity file for you now." Qin Haodong thought for a moment. Tang Feng. That's the name. Nalan Wuxia called Shaoli in and said, "Go to the technical department now and ask them to make a fake identity file for me. The file information is Tang Feng, male, 30 years old, Chinese medicine practitioner, from the Northeast. Other information can be handled as appropriate." "Okay, Captain. I'll do it now." Shaoli ran out hurriedly after he finished speaking. Nalan Wuxia turned back to Qin Haodong and said, "Because the case is extremely important, it's best that only I know the identity of Tang Feng. And there are too many people in Jiangnan City who know you. Now change your appearance. I know you have the ability to do so." "Well, do as you say." Since he had promised Nalan Wuxia, Qin Haodong no longer refused. Nalan Wuxia's office was a suite. He opened the inner door and went in. 5 minutes later, when he came out again, he had become a young man of about 30 years old. Compared with his handsome appearance before, he had become much more ordinary, and there was nothing similar. If Nalan Wuxia hadn't seen him walk in, she wouldn't have believed that the person in front of her was Qin Haodong. She raised her hand and pinched Qin Haodong's face. It was a real face without any flaws. She couldn't help but exclaim, "You guy, are you the reincarnation of an old monster? I really don't know what you can't do." Qin Haodong thought to himself that she was right. He was really the reincarnation of an old monster who had lived for 500 years. This kind of child's disguise was not difficult for him at all. He laughed and said, "There are some things that I can't do. At least I can't do it on my own at the moment." Nalan Wuxia took out her mobile phone, took a few photos of Qin Haodong, and sent them to Shaoli. Half an hour later, Shaoli hurriedly sent over a complete file and an identification card that had just been made. Qin Haodong took the ID card and looked at it. It was worthy of being made by the technical department of the criminal police team. There was no difference between it and the real one. Nalan Wuxia reviewed the file and made sure there was no problem. She said, "When are you going to enter Guangren Hospital?" Qin Haodong said, "Shouldn't you find a way to send me in? It's up to you. After all, you are more familiar with the health system than I am. If you use the power of the police, you may be discovered by the murderer." Qin Haodong sighed and said, "Well, I'll find a way myself and try to enter the hospital early tomorrow morning." Nalan Wuxia said, "You must be quick. There are only 2 days left after today. If we don't find the murderer as soon as possible, people are likely to be killed in 3 days." "I know." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "You should also hurry up with the investigation. You can focus on the Taoist priests and witches." After that, he left the criminal police team. Nalan Wuxia also led people to investigate suspicious people in the whole Jiangnan city. After going out, Qin Haodong wanted to go to the sanitary bureau to ask Pan Gaofeng for help to enter Guangren Hospital. Suddenly, he remembered that he had become Tang Feng, not the previous Qin Haodong. Pan Gaofeng would certainly not pay attention to him. On the contrary, he might give himself away. But if he didn't ask the sanitary bureau for help, how could he enter Guangren Hospital? Suddenly, he thought of something. When he treated Zhang Hao last night, he seemed to have heard that Guangren Hospital was run by his family. He opened the map on his mobile phone again and confirmed that there was only one Guangren Hospital in Jiangnan City. Since he had a relationship with Zhang Hao, things were much easier. He directly dialed Zhang Hao's number. As soon as the phone was connected, he heard Zhang Hao say with a smile, "Brother-in-law, what can I do for you?" This guy didn't have anything to do with his sister, but he dared to take advantage of him. He had to get back at him later. Qin Haodong said, "I need your help with something. If you need anything, just tell me. I will definitely help you." Zhang Hao patted his chest and said confidently. This guy changed from brother-in-law to brother-in-law. It seemed that he had gotten into the role very quickly. Qin Haodong showed a playful smile and said, here's the thing. My uncle came to Jiangnan City. He used to be a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in the Northeast. Later, he fell out with the director and wanted to find a job in Jiangnan City. Can you help him? No problem. Our family runs a hospital. I can arrange a doctor with just a word, Zhang Hao agreed without hesitation. Chapter 367. Qin Haodong smiled and said, oh. Thank you on behalf of my uncle. Don't mention it. Your uncle is also Rubing's uncle, and Rubing's uncle is my uncle. Zhang Hao had just made some progress in his relationship with Wang Rubing. Of course, he would not let go of this opportunity to please her. He asked, when will my uncle arrive? Qin Haodong said, he has arrived in Jiangnan City. He's with me now, but I have something to do. I'll ask him to find you by himself. Zhang Hao said, that's fine. I'll wait for him at the gate of Guangren Hospital. But you have to tell me what's going on with my uncle, or I won't know him when I see him. Qin Haodong held back his smile and said, my uncle is 30 years old. His name is Tang Feng. I'll tell him your phone number later and ask him to call you. Oh. I'll remember it. Zhang Hao suddenly reacted and asked, my uncle is only 30 years old. So young? Well. Qin Haodong said Tang Feng as his uncle on the spur of the moment. He didn't expect that there was a loophole in his age. He quickly explained, my uncle is the youngest son in their family, so he's naturally a little younger. But he's also the most beloved and has a high status in the family. Whether you and my sister can succeed or not depends on my uncle. Zhang Hao didn't doubt this. After all, there was a huge age gap between the eldest and the youngest in a big family. He said hurriedly, I see. Don't worry. I'll make him satisfied. Well, I'll ask my uncle to find you. After that, Qin Haodong hung up the phone and couldn't help laughing. Thinking of Zhang Hao's appearance, he was amused. Who asked this guy to call him brother-in-law when he didn't do anything? After solving the problem of entering Guangren Hospital, he called Lin Momo and said that he had to leave Jiangnan City for a period of time. He would come back in a few days. Then he went to the mobile hall, bought a new mobile phone, and used Tang Feng's ID card to apply for a phone card. Then he went to the shopping mall next door to buy a set of clothes and shoes. In this way, he completely changed his identity and no trace of his previous identity was left. Since he had changed his identity, it was not convenient for him to go home for the next few days. He drove to the vicinity of Guangren Hospital and first found a hotel to stay. After parking the car, he went to the gate of the hospital. When everything was ready, he dialed Zhang Hao's number. Hello, I'm Wang Rubing's uncle, Tang Feng. Are you Zhang Hao? Uncle. It's me. I'm little Zhang. After hearing that it was Tang Feng, Zhang Hao immediately became extremely polite. Uncle, where are you? I'll pick you up now. I am at the entrance of the hospital. Please wait for a moment, I'll be right there. Zhang Hao's car was parked nearby. After confirming Qin Haodong's identity, he trotted over and said flatteringly, hello, uncle. I'm Zhang Hao. You can call me Xiao Zhang. Qin Haodong pretended to be serious and said, Zhang, did Qin Haodong tell you about me? I did. I said it. Uncle, let me tell you, this hospital is opened by our family. You can go to any department you want. Is there a Chinese medicine department here? Zhang Hao thought for a moment and said, yes, it seems that there is. There is indeed a Chinese medicine clinic here, but now the overall market of Chinese medicine is not doing well, and it's the same here. I heard that the old Chinese medicine doctor in charge of the clinic, Hua Ziyan, once saved my grandfather's life, so my father kept the Chinese medicine department, otherwise it would have been abolished long ago. Qin Haodong said, I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. Just put me here. No problem. I'll take you there now. Although old Hua has a bad temper, he will give me some face. Forget it. You arrange everything. I'll go to work tomorrow. Qin Haodong said, I came to Jiangnan secretly without telling my family. Don't tell Rubing first. I'll tell her myself later. Also, don't tell others about our relationship in the hospital. I've always been low-key and I like to do everything by myself. I understand. I understand. In Zhang Hao's view, Wang Rubing, his uncle, just couldn't save face. He said, well, I'll go to talk to old Hua about it now, and then I'll go to the personnel department to register. You find a place to rest and wait for my call. After that, he took the portfolio from Qin Haodong's hand and turned into the hospital. Qin Haodong went back to the hotel. Zhang Hao first went to the personnel department of the hospital. The hospital was opened by his family. He was the young master, so his words carried weight. If he wanted to add a doctor to the hospital, the head of the personnel department naturally had no objection. Whether it was Chinese medicine or Western medicine, it was the Zhang family's expense, so he quickly completed the hospitalization procedures for Qin Haodong. After that, he went to the hospital's Chinese medicine clinic. Guangren Hospital was the leading private hospital in Jiangnan City, with more than 100,000 patients a year. It was the largest in addition to public hospitals such as Jiangnan Hospital and Central Hospital. Even so, the Chinese medicine clinic was not very good here. There were not many patients, so the profit was not much. Many people in the hospital suggested that the Chinese medicine department should be abolished, but Director Zhang Lijun kept it for the sake of his old friendship with Hua Ziyan. Although the Chinese medicine clinic was kept, it was placed in the most inconspicuous corner of the top floor of the hospital. Grandpa Hua, I'm here. After entering the door, Zhang Hao said to an old man in his late 70s. He was the person in charge of the Chinese medicine clinic and the only doctor there, Hua Ziyan. Although Zhang Hao was usually a playboy, he was very polite because of Hua Ziyan and his grandfather. At this time, there were no patients in the clinic. Hua Ziyan was reading an old medical book. When he looked up and saw Zhang Hao, he said, It's you, Hao. Oh, it's little Hao. What brings you here today? Zhang Hao smiled and said, Grandpa Hua, I just came to see you. If you have something to say it quickly. You must have something to say. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to see me. Hua Ziyan was famous for being a stubborn old man in the hospital. He had a bad temper and was not polite to Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao said, Grandpa Hua, I have a friend who is also a Chinese medicine practitioner. He wants to come and learn from you for a few days. What do you think? Hua Ziyan had no children in his life and dedicated his life to Chinese medicine. When he heard that Zhang Hao wanted to increase the staff of the Chinese medicine clinic, he naturally had no objection. Okay, let him come tomorrow. As long as I can do it, I'll teach him. Grandpa Hua, it's a deal then. You're busy, I'll go tell him now. Zhang Hao left the Chinese medicine clinic and dialed Qin Haodong's number. Uncle, I've finished your business. I'll take you to the Chinese medicine clinic at 8:00 tomorrow morning. Qin Haodong said, Forget it, I can go by myself. Thank you for your trouble. Zhang Hao quickly said, It's all right. It's all right. Your business is my business. If there's anything you need, just give me a call. After hanging up the phone, Qin Haodong had a simple dinner. He had nothing to do in the hotel alone, so he took out the Shenong furnace and began to refine medicine. Although he didn't have the help of the little fellow's phoenix fire, the level of the pills he refined was not high, so it didn't affect him much. Near midnight, he put the refined pills into the storage ring and began to sleep. The next day, he went to the Chinese medicine clinic of Guangren Hospital early. After entering the door, he said to Hua Ziyan, Mr. Hua, my name is Tang Feng. Zhang Hao asked me to come. Hua Ziyan was still reading his old medical book. When he saw Qin Haodong, he just nodded and asked the nurse to bring a new white coat to Qin Haodong. Then he continued to read. In his eyes, there were only two kinds of people, those who loved Chinese medicine and those who didn't. If Qin Haodong loved Chinese medicine, he would be willing to teach him all he had learned in his life, even without Zhang Hao's relationship. If he didn't love Chinese medicine and just came here to make a living, he would not give him any face, even with Zhang Hao's relationship. Of course, Qin Haodong was not here to learn Chinese medicine. With his medical skills, no one in the world could be his teacher. After changing his clothes, he took out his mobile phone and sent a text message to Nailan Wuxia, telling her that he had successfully entered the Chinese medicine clinic of Guangren Hospital. After a long time, a short message came back from the other side of the phone. Okay. Qin Haodong didn't think too much about it. There had been 3 murders in a row, and Nailan Wuxia was under great pressure. She must be busy solving the cases. After sitting for a while, the Chinese medicine clinic was really deserted. There were no patients for a long time. He stood up and walked out of the clinic. Looking at his back, Hua Zi and couldn't help shaking his head. This young man didn't look like he would settle down to learn Chinese medicine. He was disappointed. Qin Haodong came out for a purpose. Since Nailan Wuxia was busy, he couldn't be idle. Since the 3 victims had been hospitalized in Guangren Hospital, it meant that the murderer knew their information very well and had killed selectively. It seemed that the murderer must have inquired about the 3 of them before he killed them, and the information must have been obtained through the archives. Thinking of this, he found an empty corner, took out his mobile phone, and dialed Chi Weiner's number. Weiner, can you help me check the inquiry records of the archives of Guangren Hospital and see who has inquired about the archives? Wait a minute, it will be done soon. Chi Weiner said, and then her 10 fingers jumped wildly on the laptop. Soon she said, the archives of Guangren Hospital is not connected to the internet. I can't find anything here. You can't find anything? Qin Haodong was disappointed. Then he asked, you are a computer expert. Is there no other way? Chi Weiner said, they are physically isolated from the internet. There is no connection at all. It's useless no matter how good a hacker is. For example, no matter how good a racer is, can he run without a road? Oh. Well, I'll think of another way. Qin Haodong hung up the phone and walked around the corridor a few times. Since Chi Weiner's trick didn't work, he could only go to the archives by himself. Guangren Hospital was very large. The archives was in a small building next to the main building. Qin Haodong went downstairs and stepped into the archives. Similar to the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room, it was also very quiet. Not many people came here to handle business. In the reception room, a young nurse was eating potato chips and watching TV shows with her mobile phone. The young nurse's name was Zhang Tingting. She was good-looking and had a very cute baby face, but she was a little too fat. She seemed to be about 150 kilograms, so she hadn't found a boyfriend yet. Hello, little sister. The young nurse was 26 years old, so Qin Haodong naturally called her little sister. Zhang Tingting was suddenly unhappy and said with a dissatisfied face, how can you say that? Who are you calling sister? I'm younger than you. Chapter 368. Only then did Qin Haodong realize that he was no longer the handsome and young Qin Haodong. Now he was the ordinary-looking Tang Feng, who looked much older. Little sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Qin Haodong needed help. He said with a smile, my name is Tang Feng. I'm a new doctor in our hospital. Seeing that his attitude was good enough, Zhang Tingting's face eased a lot. She glanced at him and said, are you a doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine department? Qin Haodong said in surprise, how do you know? What's so strange about that? I can smell the smell of traditional Chinese medicine from a distance. And in our hospital, except for the doctors in the traditional Chinese medicine department, who else would be so free? Qin Haodong said with an exaggerated expression, little sister, you are so smart. Even the legendary snow and ice cleverness is nothing more than this. Although she knew that Qin Haodong was flattering her, Zhang Tingting was still very happy. No one would say such words to a fat girl like her. A smile appeared on her cold face and she asked, "What can I do for you?" "Well, I want to see the inquiry records of our archives." "Can you see if you can?" Before Qin Haodong finished speaking, the smile on Zhang Tingting's face suddenly disappeared. She said, "Absolutely not. The hospital has a rule that if you want to access the inquiry records, you must get the approval of the director. You are not allowed to look at it privately." Although he was refused, Qin Haodong did not leave. He sniffed and asked, "Little sister, are you using French perfume? Why does it smell so good?" Zhang Tingting was slightly stunned at first, and then said, "Are you kidding me? A nurse like me only earns a few thousand yuan a month. How can I afford French perfume? I don't use perfume at all. It smells so good without perfume." Qin Haodong put on an exaggerated expression. "Is it your natural body fragrance, little sister? It is said that only Yang Guifei, one of the four great beauties, and Princess Xiangxiang, whom Emperor Qianlong loved all his life, have this kind of fragrance." "Really? You're making me feel embarrassed." Being praised by Qin Haodong, Zhang Tingting's face turned red. Then she sighed and said, "To tell you the truth, I really can't do it. If the director knows, I will be fired." Qin Haodong seemed not to hear what she said and continued, "You know what? I study Chinese medicine, and my family has an ancestral prescription that is very effective in losing weight." Hearing his words, Zhang Tingting's eyes immediately lit up and she cried excitedly, "Is that true? Traditional Chinese medicine can also help you lose weight?" Some people said that losing weight was a girl's lifelong pursuit. This was no exaggeration, especially for a fat girl like her. It could be said that being fat ruined everything. She had thought of many ways to lose weight, but the results were not ideal. What's the biggest tragedy of losing weight for women? That is, to lose weight, first slim the chest, and to gain weight, first fat the waist. After a round of torment, your waist is getting thicker and your chest is getting smaller and smaller. That's right, that's right. It's so sad. Zhang Tingting deeply felt that it would be good if her breasts were bigger for someone as fat as her. However, fat was everywhere except for her breasts. Every time she lost weight, the first thing she lost was her breasts. But when she rebounded, her breasts didn't grow at all, but her waist grew rapidly. After a few rounds, his entire body had turned into a large bucket. Qin Haodong said again, "My ancestral secret prescription can not only eliminate fat, but also transfer the fat from other parts to the chest. As long as you eat it for a few days, I guarantee that you will grow a fantastic figure." "No way. How can it be so exaggerated? Are you lying to me?" Although Zhang Tingting's tone was negative, there was excitement in her surprise and desire in her excitement. This kind of weight loss medicine was simply the magic medicine of every woman's dream. "It's not exaggerated at all. I'm telling the truth," Qin Haodong said as he stretched out his right hand and handed a small porcelain bottle through the window. "There are a total of 20 weight loss medicines in it. Take one a day. After 20 days, I guarantee that you will have a fantastic figure and never rebound." Is this true?" Zhang Tingting took the small porcelain bottle with trembling hands, but she still couldn't believe it. "Believe me, it's true. And this is a pure Chinese medicine preparation. It's non-toxic and has no side effects. If you don't believe me, you can take one now and you will soon feel the effect." Qin Haodong's expression was like a bad uncle selling fake medicine, and his words were extremely tempting. "Is there anything wrong with your medicine?" Although Zhang Tingting's heart was full of desire, she still had a trace of doubt. Qin Haodong said, "I'm a doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. We are also colleagues. How can I lie to my colleagues? And think about it, what can I get from lying to you?" Zhang Tingting thought about it and agreed. Cheating money? She only had 100 or 200 yuan in her pocket. Cheating sex? With her figure, if she walked at night, gangsters would take a detour when they saw her. Thinking of this, she finally couldn't resist the temptation of losing weight. She opened the porcelain bottle, poured out a small black pill from it and threw it into her mouth. It turned out that Qin Haodong didn't lie to her. This kind of weight loss medicine was made by him last night according to the formula of the cultivation world. It had an excellent weight loss effect. It could be said that what he just said was not exaggerated at all. About 10 minutes after taking the medicine, Zhang Tingting's face slowly changed. She asked nervously, "Is there something wrong with your medicine? Why do I feel stuffy in my chest after taking it? I can't breathe." Qin Haodong glanced at her and said, "Because my medicine has worked. Your chest has become bigger, but the bra is too small, so you feel stuffy." Zhang Tingting felt it carefully. It seemed that as Qin Haodong said, her chest was tight because the bra became smaller. She had no time to be shy. She raised her hand excitedly to touch her chest and then her abdomen. Indeed, her waist was much thinner, and her chest was much bigger. "Brother, thank you so much. Your medicine is really effective. Of course, this is a secret recipe passed down from generation to generation. As long as you take it for 20 days in a row, I guarantee that you will have a good figure that will be envied by everyone." Qin Haodong said again, "How about it? Can you let me see the borrowing record now?" "This." Zhang Tingting immediately calmed down and said awkwardly, "This really violates the hospital's rules. If the director finds out, I will lose my job." Qin Haodong said, "Isn't it just a nurse? It's not a big deal. If you lose your job, I promise to help you find another good job." But Zhang Tingting was still hesitant. She still attached great importance to this job. "It's fine if you don't agree. Then give me back the medicine in your hand and I won't look at the record," Qin Haodong said as he reached out to grab the medicine bottle in Zhang Tingting's hand. "No, I'll show you." Zhang Tingting quickly put the small porcelain bottle in her hand into her pocket. Now this bottle of medicine was her life. She would never take it back no matter what. Then she opened the drawer, took out a registration file and gave it to Qin Haodong. "You can read it here. Be quick. Don't let others find out." "Don't worry, I'll be quick," Qin Haodong said as he took the file and quickly flipped through it. His speed was amazing. He only needed to glance at each page to absorb all the content into his mind. In less than a minute, he had finished reading the whole file. Zhang Tingting was stunned. There was actually such a way to read the record. She wondered if Qin Haodong had read it clearly. Qin Haodong sent the registration back, but his brain was spinning fast. In the past month, there were about a dozen people who had gone to the archives to read the files. These people were all doctors of the hospital. Although this narrowed the scope a lot, it was still impossible to determine who had read the information of the deceased. He asked, "Is there any way to determine what the people who read the files have read?" Zhang Tingting shook her head and said, "There is no such detailed registration. As long as you get the approval of the director, you can come here to check the files. Then you can check anyone you want." "Oh." Qin Haodong responded and asked again, "Is it possible for those who come here to inquire about the files without registering? Or to check the electronic files from the computer?" Zhang Tingting said, "That's impossible. Although we are only a private hospital, the rules of the hospital are very strict. Every time you want to check the files, you must be approved and registered. There is only one electronic file, which is in the hands of the director. No one can see it even if they want to." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Well, thank you." "Well, I still don't know your name?" Zhang Tingting asked. "My name is Tang Feng. If you need anything, you can come to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic to find me." Then Qin Haodong turned around and was about to leave. Zhang Tingting said, "Dr. Tang, you must keep what happened today a secret for me. Don't worry. I'm here today to sell slimming pills. That's all." Qin Haodong smiled at her knowingly and then left the archives. Zhang Tingting looked at his back for a while. The new doctor looked ordinary, but there was a kind of charm about him. He was completely different from the men she had seen before. Qin Haodong went through the information of the doctors in his mind as he walked. There were surgeons and internists among them. It was really difficult to check them one by one in 3 days. He walked from the small building of the archives to the main building. At that moment, more than a dozen police officers rushed over with a stretcher. There was an injured policeman lying on the stretcher with a dagger in the left side of his chest. The dagger was all the way to the handle. It seemed that the man was seriously injured. These people rushed into the emergency room with the injured man. As soon as they went over, Nailan Wuxia and Wang Jianfeng ran in from the outside. It seemed that the injured man was from the crime squad of Jiangnan City. Seeing that someone was injured, Qin Haodong followed them and stood outside the crowd to watch. Everyone's attention was on the injured man. Even Nailan Wuxia did not notice him. At this time, the door of the emergency room was full of policemen. The injured man was Feng Zixiong, an investigator of the crime squad. He had just been stabbed when investigating the murder suspect. Nailan Wuxia was originally discussing the case with Wang Jianfeng. They rushed over when they got the news. Since the injured man was a policeman on duty, the hospital also attached great importance to it. All departments showed high efficiency. About 10 minutes later, a stack of examination materials was sent to several doctors in white coats. "Doctor, how is our policeman?" Nailan Wuxia asked nervously. She had seen Feng Zixiong's injury just now. The dagger was just stabbed in the side of his heart. This kind of injury could easily be fatal. "I'm Lu Fei, the attending doctor in charge of this treatment." A middle-aged doctor in a white coat said, "This is the treatment plan developed by several of our surgical experts based on the patient's condition. Take a look." Wang Jianfeng said, "Dr. Lu, we are all laymen for specific treatment. Please explain it to us." Chapter 369. Lu Fei cleared his throat and said, "The situation is like this. The injured person's injury is very serious. The dagger has pierced through his chest. The worst part is that it is close to his heart and has even injured some of the peripheral tissues of his heart. In this case, it is a miracle that the injured person did not die on the spot. We must carry out an operation immediately to remove the dagger. Otherwise, he can only hold on for 2 to 3 hours at most." Hearing that Feng Zixiong's injury was so serious, Nailan Wuxia said eagerly, "Doctor, no matter how much it costs, you must save our policeman. Please." Lu Fei said, "We will try our best. We will arrange the operation immediately, but you must be mentally prepared. The operation is very risky." At this time, another policeman in uniform came in from outside the crowd and asked nervously, "How risky is it?" He was Feng Zixiong's brother, Feng Ziying. He had just arrived after receiving the news of his brother's injury. Lu Fei paused and said, "The success rate of the operation is less than 5%. Hearing this number, Feng Ziying immediately shouted excitedly, "What? Less than 5%? What's the difference between this and death?" Wang Jianfeng and Nailan Wuxia's faces also became very gloomy. The 5% success rate was too slim. It meant that Feng Zixiong was very likely to die on the operating table. This result was not much different from a direct sentence of death. There was a dead silence in the corridor. Some policemen even shed tears for their comrades. Lu Fei said, "There is no other way. The patient's injury is too serious. This is all we can do." Feng Ziying slowly closed his eyes. His face was pale and 2 big drops of tears flowed down. This was his brother. He could not accept this fact in any case. Wang Jianfeng patted him on the shoulder and comforted him, "Don't be so disappointed. Is there still a glimmer of hope?" A glimmer of hope. Feng Zixiong really only had a glimmer of hope. It was too little. But Feng Ziying also knew very well that there was still a glimmer of hope if he had an operation. If not, his brother would die in a few hours. This left him no choice at all. He tried to calm down and said in a trembling voice, "Dr. Liu, please, you must save my brother. As a doctor, I will try my best." Lu Fei nodded and said, "Since the family has no objection, I will arrange the operation immediately." "Wait a minute." At this time, a voice came from the side. Everyone turned their heads and saw that it was a young doctor in his 30s. Nalan Wuxia's expression changed slightly. After seeing this man, she felt much more at ease. Maybe he could bring her another miracle. Qin Haodong looked at Lu Fei and asked, "I want to ask why the operation is so risky." Lu Fei glanced at Qin Haodong. Although Qin Haodong was wearing a white coat, Lu Fei did not know him. He thought he was a family member of the patient, so he said patiently, "The location of the injury is too close to the heart, so the risk of surgery is naturally high." Qin Haodong said, "If I have a way to protect his heart, will the success rate of the operation be greatly increased?" Lu Fei said, "In theory, if the heart can be protected and the normal beating during the operation, the success rate of the operation can reach more than 90%, but this is only a theoretical guess. It's impossible to do." "Alright, I have a way to protect his heart. Give me an hour." After Qin Haodong finished speaking, everyone except Nalan Wuxia, who knew his identity, was shocked. Feng Ziying strode to him, took his hand and said in a trembling voice, "Doctor, do you really have a way to save my brother?" "Don't worry, I can," Qin Haodong said confidently. He knew very well that he had to show more confidence at this time, or no one would believe him. Lu Fei looked at him doubtfully and said, "I want to know what you can do to protect the heart of the patient." Qin Haodong said, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Tang Feng, a doctor invited by the traditional Chinese medicine department. Wait for me for an hour. I will boil a decoction. Drinking it can protect the heart of the patient." A new doctor, or a traditional Chinese medicine doctor from the traditional Chinese medicine department? After knowing that this was not a family member of the patient, Lu Fei's expression immediately changed. "Nonsense, this is nonsense. What do you think traditional Chinese medicine is? Fairy soup? Drinking your decoction can protect the heart of the patient? This is nonsense. Tell me, what's the scientific basis?" No wonder he had such a strong reaction. Many doctors in Guangren Hospital called for the abolition of the traditional Chinese medicine department, and Lu Fei was the most enthusiastic one. In his eyes, he had always looked down on traditional Chinese medicine. "Don't talk about science. I am confident that I can protect the heart of the patient," Qin Haodong said in a powerful voice. "Are you kidding me? I really don't know who gave you such confidence. Traditional Chinese medicine without any scientific basis?" Lu Fei looked disdainful. "Even if I can believe you, can the family of the deceased believe you?" After that, he turned to look at Wang Jianfeng and the others. "Everyone, what do you think? From my point of view, I don't believe that traditional Chinese medicine can cure diseases." Wang Jianfeng hesitated. Although he could be decisive when solving cases, this was treating diseases. He knew nothing about it, so he didn't know what to do for a moment. "I believe in Dr. Tang. Let's do what he said." It was Nalan Wuxia who spoke. Others didn't know Qin Haodong's ability, but she knew it very well. This, Lu Fei was a little stunned. In his opinion, these policemen should believe him. At least he was the attending doctor of the hospital, a famous surgeon. But now this beautiful policewoman in front of him trusted this traditional Chinese medicine who jumped out of nowhere without hesitation. Was she stupid? He said to Feng Ziying, "What do you think, family member?" He knew that Feng Ziying was the only family member of the injured at the scene, so the final decision was still in his hands. This, Feng Ziying looked at Nalan Wuxia awkwardly. He admired the captain of the criminal police very much. But now they were in the hospital, and it was about his brother's life and death. For a moment, he was a little embarrassed. Nalan Wuxia said firmly, "Xiao Feng, believe me. Do what Dr. Tang said. There will be no mistake." Wang Jianfeng was a little impatient. He whispered in Nalan Wuxia's ear, Captain Nalan, is this appropriate? He had been working with Nalan Wuxia for many years, so he kindly reminded her. If she really made the decision for Feng Ziying, what if the operation failed? Although his voice was very low, it was very quiet in the corridor, so Lu Fei heard Wang Jianfeng's words clearly. He couldn't help but feel a little proud. He knew that Wang Jianfeng was the deputy director of the Public Security Bureau, the supreme commander here, and finally chose to believe him. Nalan Wuxia turned back and whispered in Wang Jianfeng's ear. This time, her voice was lower, so Lu Fei didn't hear what she said. Hearing this, Wang Jianfeng's expression immediately changed. He turned to Feng Ziying and said, Xiao Feng, don't hesitate anymore. Do what Dr. Tang said. Seeing that his two leaders were so confident, Feng Ziying also said, well, I believe Dr. Tang. What? Lu Fei looked incredulous and said, little brother, you have to think about it. Even if you believe in traditional Chinese medicine, what can he know at his age? You can't joke with your brother's life. Feng Ziying said, Dr. Lu, if you have any other way to improve the success rate of my brother's operation, I choose to believe you. The reason why he chose to believe Qin Haodong was that he trusted Wang Jianfeng and Nalan Wuxia, and there was really no other way. He was holding a hopeless attitude. Well, Lu Fei was speechless for a moment. He really couldn't come up with a better idea. As a senior surgeon, he knew very well how risky this operation was. The success rate was almost negligible, so he did not dare to make any guarantees or promises. At this time, a female doctor next to him said, Dr. Lu, since we don't have a good idea, why don't we give it a try? Maybe we can get a good result. She was Fang Yuqi, Lu Fei's assistant and a surgeon in the hospital. Seeing that everyone agreed with this plan, Lu Fei couldn't help frowning and then said, since you all agree, I have no objection. Anyway, don't blame me if something goes wrong. He knew how risky the operation was, and he also knew Feng Zixiong's special identity. It was said that he was injured in the process of arresting criminals. Afterward, he would be crowned a hero by the media. If such a person died on his operating table, it would eventually have a bad impact on his reputation. But if traditional Chinese medicine was used, it would be different. Traditional Chinese medicine would be the scapegoat. Feng Ziying turned to Qin Haodong and said, Dr. Tang, please hurry up. My brother really doesn't have much time. Don't worry, I'll be back in an hour. Then Qin Haodong turned around and hurried back to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. Mr. Hua, let me borrow the pharmacy. Then Qin Haodong hurried into the pharmacy of the traditional Chinese medicine clinic, opened a medicine kitchen, and began to fill up the medicine. He grabbed a medicinal material and put it under his nose to smell it. Although the pharmacy here was not big, it had a complete variety and the quality of the medicine was good. It seemed that the old man Hua Zi and really took care of these medicines. Hua Zi and had just finished seeing a patient. After sending the patient away, he turned to look at Qin Haodong. He didn't understand why the new young doctor would come back and fill up the medicine. What was he going to do? With curiosity, he walked into the pharmacy. When he saw the speed at which Qin Haodong filled up the medicine, his face suddenly changed and he said angrily, nonsense. Qin Haodong was racing against time. Hearing the reprimand, he looked back and saw Hua Zi and glaring at him. He looked around again and found that he was the only one in the pharmacy. It seemed that Hua Zi and was dissatisfied with him. This old man, I've already said hello to him. Why is he still so angry? Mr. Hua, what's the problem? I'm in urgent need of the medicine. I'll pay the price later. While speaking, he didn't stop. He opened another medicine cabinet and grabbed a handful of medicinal materials from it. Hua Zi and said angrily, what are you doing? I'm filling up the medicine. Qin Haodong's face was full of surprise. Was this old man sick? I've said it several times. Hua Zi and said angrily, nonsense, how can you fill up the medicine like this? Every dose of traditional Chinese medicine has strict requirements. A little more or less will have a great impact on the efficacy of the medicine. You can't even weigh the medicine. Can't you be responsible for the patient? The reputation of traditional Chinese medicine is tarnished by people like you. Only then did Qin Haodong know what the problem was. He quickly explained, Mr. Hua, you misunderstood me. I'm very accurate at filling up the medicine. The amount won't be wrong. Chapter 370. You're talking nonsense. Hua Zi and became so angry that his beard twitched. I've been a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner all my life, and I've never seen anyone fill a prescription without weighing it. Qin Haodong said, Mr. Hua, I'm really in a hurry. If you don't believe me, you can check it. Then he continued to fill the prescription. Hua Zi and snorted. This young man was really stubborn. He asked, how much did you just catch? 2 taels and 1 qian. Qin Haodong said without looking back. Hua Zi and picked up the herb and put it on the scale. His eyes widened in surprise. The scale showed that it was 2 taels and 1 qian, not a cent more or less. How could this be possible? He must have guessed it. He asked again, how many fleece flower did you catch? 6 taels and 5 qian. Hua Zi and checked it again, and it was still the same. Bodhi leaf, 3 taels and 2 qian, chicken bone grass, 4 taels and 6 qian. After checking 6 or 7 herbs in a row, Hua Zi and was finally convinced. He knew that the young man in front of him was really capable. The herbs he caught with his hands were exactly the same as those on the scale. After calming himself down, he stepped forward and said, Little brother, how did you do this? His initial anger towards Qin Haodong had turned into admiration, and he even addressed him as, Little brother. I've been filling prescriptions with my grandfather since I was a child. The more I do, the better I am. Qin Haodong gave a random reason, then put the herbs together and poured them into a pot of decoction soup next to him. Little brother, what's this prescription? Why can't I see it? Hua Zi and had been dealing with traditional Chinese medicine for so many years. If it was an ordinary prescription, he could know what it was by looking at the herbs. But he couldn't see anything wrong with the medicine Qin Haodong made. Mr. Hua, let's talk about it later. I'm in a hurry to save someone. Qin Haodong was about to boil the medicine. Hua Zi and was full of curiosity about Qin Haodong at this time. How could he let him go so easily? He quickly said, leave it to little Zhao. Let's have a good talk. As he spoke, he called over a young nurse beside him. The nurse's name was Zhao Ying. She was a nurse specially assigned to the traditional Chinese medicine consultation room. She had always been lazy and would be late every day. Anyway, the traditional Chinese medicine consultation room was not profitable, so she did not have to worry about her bonus being deducted. Because she came late, Qin Haodong did not see her just now. Hua Zi and said, Xiao Zhao, go and boil this pot of medicine. Seeing the old man's enthusiasm, Qin Haodong handed the pot to Zhao Ying. At the same time, he repeatedly told her what to pay attention to during the decoction. Got it. Zhao Ying answered impatiently and raised her hand to take the pot. When she turned around, she immediately curled her lips and thought to herself, isn't it just boiling medicine? You're still so wishy-washy. Do you really think you're a medical saint? When Zhao Ying went to boil the medicine, Hua Zi and immediately sat down with Qin Haodong and asked eagerly, Little brother, what's going on? What kind of medicine is this? What kind of illness are you attending to? My medicine is called pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. It has an extremely powerful effect on protecting and nourishing the heart. Qin Haodong told him what had just happened and then said, there's only 1 hour left. We have to hurry up and boil this medicine to increase the success rate of the operation. Hua Zi and was stunned. He had studied traditional Chinese medicine all his life, but he had never heard of pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Little brother, is your medicine reliable? Can it really work? Can it really protect people's heart? Of course it's reliable. It's a matter of life and death. How could I joke about it? Hua Zian was still confused. Qin Haodong smiled and said, when the operation is over, Mr. Hua will know how effective the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup is. Oh. Hua Zian responded doubtfully and then began to chat with Qin Haodong. As the conversation went on, he was more and more surprised. He found that Qin Haodong's understanding of traditional Chinese medicine had reached an incredible level. At first, he asked some questions about traditional Chinese medicine with a testing attitude. He wanted to see what this young man's attainments in traditional Chinese medicine were like. However, Qin Haodong answered him fluently and had a deeper understanding than him, which amazed him. Later, the conversation between the two became an equal exchange. Later, he directly asked Qin Haodong for advice and asked all the questions that had been dormant in his heart for many years. But no matter how difficult the questions were, Qin Haodong could quickly give almost perfect answers. Hua Zian asked with admiration, "Little brother, who did you learn your medical skills from?" "It's a family skill. I learned it from my grandfather," Qin Haodong said. "I admire you so much. I've lived for more than 70 years, and you are the most accomplished traditional Chinese medicine person I've ever seen. It's really rare for you to have such high medical skills at such a young age. I'm afraid even the legendary medical sage Qin Haodong can't compare with you." Qin Haodong smiled but didn't speak. He didn't need to compete with himself. Both of them had a love for traditional Chinese medicine from the bottom of their hearts, so they talked happily. More than half an hour passed quickly. At this time, Zhao Ying came back with the pot and said, "The medicine is ready." Qin Haodong sniffed and frowned slightly. Then he opened the lid of the pot and sniffed it carefully. He looked up at Zhao Ying and said, "What happened? Why didn't you boil the medicine according to my instructions?" Zhao Ying was slightly stunned. How did he know? But she wouldn't admit such a thing without evidence. She stiffened her neck and said, "I boiled the medicine according to your instructions." "Impossible. The smell of the medicine is not right at all. You must not have followed the procedure." Qin Haodong was secretly annoyed. He had just told the little nurse clearly and even explained every minute of the heat when boiling the medicine in great detail. He didn't expect that Zhao Ying didn't listen at all. He said with a sullen face, "The medicine of traditional Chinese medicine must be done perfectly. The medicine you made is not effective at all. It will kill people." No wonder he was angry. This medicine was related to Feng Zixiong's life, so he couldn't be careless. Hearing this, the little nurse's face also became cold. "Isn't it just a traditional Chinese medicine? What's the big deal? It's your first day here. Why are you pretending? Do you really think you're a medical sage?" Time was running out. Qin Haodong had no time to pay attention to the self-righteous little nurse. He hurried into the pharmacy again. This medicine couldn't be used at all. He had to get a new one. Now there were only 10 minutes left, so he had to hurry. The little nurse glanced at his back and said disdainfully, "What are you pretending for? You make yourself look like a magic doctor. I really don't know where you come from." Bullsh *T. After that, she seemed to feel that she had gone too far. She turned to Hua Zian and said, "I really don't know where he came from. With you here, he can't tell me what to do." Then she found that Hua Zian's face was livid. He raised his hand and pointed at her. "Zhao Ying, from now on, you don't have to come to work anymore." "What? Sir, what did I do wrong?" Zhao Ying was completely dumbfounded. She could look down on Qin Haodong, the newcomer, but she couldn't ignore Hua Zian's attitude. The old man could make her lose her job with a word. In Guangren Hospital, those who could work as nurses in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic were the worst. They had no connections or background. If even here didn't want her, she could only pack up and go home. As a nurse, you don't know how to respect doctors in traditional Chinese medicine. Why should I keep you here? Pack up and get out of here. The old man was really angry. Even he respected Qin Haodong's ability from the bottom of his heart. How could he tolerate a little nurse offending him? Zhao Ying's face was pale. It was the first time that she had seen Hua Zi and so angry in a long time. She knew that she would lose her job completely. She just didn't understand why Hua Zi and valued such a young man so much. Could it be that he had a backer? But how could a person with a backer come to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic to be a little doctor? In the pharmacy, Qin Haodong's speed had reached the extreme. In less than a minute, he grabbed the medicinal materials again, poured them into the medicine pot, and began to boil the medicine himself. This, Hua Zi and was dumbfounded. He had never seen anyone who could grab and boil herbs to such an extreme. It was simply amazing. There was not much time left. It would be too late to boil the medicine according to the ordinary method, so Qin Haodong used greenwood genuine qi to quickly stimulate the medicinal properties of various medicinal materials. 7 or 8 minutes later, a strong smell of medicine wafted out. The world's first pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup was fresh out of the oven. At the same time, in the ward, Lu Fei said with a cold face, "There are only 10 minutes left, and Tang Feng hasn't come back yet. I think he's a liar. We don't have to wait for him. It's time to start the operation." Nalan Wuxia said in a deep voice, "We agreed to wait for an hour. There are still 10 minutes left. What's the hurry?" Lu Fei turned to look at Feng Ziying and said, "Sir, the patient's condition is very critical and may deteriorate at any time. We can't delay any longer. I suggest the operation immediately." Although Feng Ziying was very worried about his brother, thinking of the less than 5% success rate, he gritted his teeth and said, "Let's wait a little longer. Dr. Tang should be back soon." This, Lu Fei's face was very ugly. For a little Chinese medicine practitioner, he was asked to wait here with a scalpel. This was obviously not giving him face. However, the patient's family did not agree, so he could not force the operation. Otherwise, no one could afford the consequences. Time passed. There were only 2 minutes left, but there was still no sign of Qin Haodong. At this moment, a young nurse in the ward ran out and cried in panic, "Dr. Lu, it's bad. The patient's condition suddenly deteriorated. It's very critical." Hearing this, everyone at the door changed their expressions. Lu Fei cried, "It's all your fault. You had to wait for a strange Chinese medicine practitioner. Now the patient's condition has deteriorated. It will be too late if we don't operate now." Feng Ziying said nervously, "Dr. Lu, you have to save my brother." Lu Fei waved his hand and said, "We can't wait any longer. Start the operation now." Although there were only 2 minutes left, the situation was critical. If something really happened to Feng Zixiong, no one could bear the responsibility. Nalan Wuxia and the others could not stop him. Lu Fei put on his mask and hurried into the operating room. Feng Ziying's eyes were wide open. He stared at the red light above the operating room and kept praying for his brother in his heart, hoping that he would be safe. At this time, a young nurse came out. Nalan Wuxia stopped her and asked, "How is the patient's condition?" "It's very critical. His heart is very weak and may stop at any time," the young nurse said and hurried away. Everyone's heart seemed to sink to the bottom. At this moment, Nalan Wuxia saw a figure appear at the end of the corridor. It was Qin Haodong. Chapter 371. Qin Haodong walked in front with a pot of medicine, followed by the white-haired Hua Zi and, panting, "Wait for me, little brother." The old man's eyes were burning. He had just seen Qin Haodong's magical way of making medicine. It should have taken 40 minutes to make a pot of medicine, but it was done in less than 10 minutes. It was an eye-opener for him, so he naturally came to see the effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Glancing at the red light on the top of the operating room, Qin Haodong's face darkened and he asked, "Has the operation begun?" Nalan Wuxia said, "There's no other way. 2 minutes ago, Feng Zixiong's injury suddenly worsened, so the operation has to be carried out in advance. 2 minutes. There's still time. I'll take the medicine in and give it to the patient. Then he was about to enter the operating room. Hua Zian said, little brother, let me do it. Given Lu Fei's character, he won't let you give medicine to someone on his operating table. And you've just arrived. You can't get in without a chest card. He had fought with Lu Fei for so many years in the hospital, so he naturally knew this guy's character. It was okay to give the patient the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup before the operation. But Lu Fei would never agree to give the patient traditional Chinese medicine on his operating table. Qin Haodong thought for a moment. He had come to the hospital undercover, so it was better to keep a low profile. He handed the pot to Hua Zian. Thank you, Mr. Hua. Hua Zian nodded, took the pot, opened the door of the operating room with his chest card, and then walked in. In the operating room, the doctors and nurses were busy, and the operation was going on nervously. Hua Zian glanced at the heart monitor next to him, and his expression changed. Although he was a Chinese medicine practitioner, he still knew a little about the most basic Western medicine. At this time, the curve of the heart on the screen had almost become a straight line, which meant that the heartbeat was extremely weak and could stop at any time. Fang Yuqi, the assistant, said, Dr. Lu, the patient's condition is too dangerous now. I'm afraid he can't be saved. Lu Fei said, don't worry about that. We have to finish the operation anyway. If we can't save him, there's nothing we can do. Then he told the surrounding doctors and nurses to get ready and wanted to take the dagger out of Feng Zixiong's chest. Fang Yuqi didn't speak. Surgeons like them were used to life and death. Although they would try their best to save every life during the surgery, they would not be too upset if they could not save it. At this moment, the patient's heart could stop beating at any time. Under such circumstances, the patient might lose his life the moment the dagger was pulled out. Wait a minute, let him drink this medicine first. Hua Zian opened the pot in his hand, and a strong smell of Chinese medicine filled the operating room. Hearing the shout, Lu Fei withdrew his hand that was about to draw the saber. He turned around and said angrily, Hua Zian, are you crazy? This is a surgical operation room. What are you doing here? Hurry up and take out these things you've made of grass roots and rotten bark. Hearing this, Hua Zian's eyes immediately widened and he said angrily, you have forgotten your ancestors. Which of your ancestors didn't survive on grass roots and bark? TCM is a treasure left behind by our Chinese ancestors. You can worship foreigners, but you can't belittle TCM. That's cruel and unscrupulous. Old man Hua, who are you calling heartless? Lu Fei threw down the scalpel and shouted angrily at Hua Zian. It seemed that he wanted to fight with Hua Zian at a close distance, but he was stopped by Fang Yuqi. Although Hua Zian was over 70 years old and had white hair, he was not afraid of Lu Fei at all. He said coldly, Lu, have you forgotten the duty of a doctor? Whether it's TCM or Western medicine, the patient is lying in bed now. No matter what the situation is, you must think of the patient first. He raised his finger to the heart monitor next to him, which had almost stopped beating. You can see the situation. The patient is in danger of dying at any time. If Dr. Lu is sure to save him, I will not say a word and apologize to you immediately. But now you can't think of a good way. Would you rather risk other people's lives? You don't even want to try traditional Chinese medicine. You are selfish. Lu Fei said coldly, this is my operating table. I decide how to treat the patient. In any case, I will not let my patient drink TCM. Hua Zian said angrily, you want the patient to die? This is murder. Have you forgotten that you are a doctor? Lu Fei sneered, murder? Well, there are so many policemen outside. Let them arrest me. Hua Zian was so angry that his eyes were on fire. He said angrily, Lu Fei, where are your medical ethics? In your eyes, this patient is just a life that can be sacrificed at any time. Have you ever thought about his family? Have you ever thought about his parents and children? Have you ever thought that your one wrong decision could destroy several families? Lu Fei's face froze, but he insisted, "Old Hua, you talk too much nonsense. Get out of here and don't delay my operation." "No, I can't just watch a life die like this. I have to make him drink the medicine with my own hands." Hua Zi and strode to the operating table with the pot of medicine. "Old man Hua, stop right there." Lu Fei shouted and was about to stop Hua Zi, but was stopped by Fong Yuqi next to him. "Dr. Lu, we have no better way now. I think we can let old Hua have a try." Lu Fei didn't expect Fong Yuqi to oppose him. He said angrily, "Have you forgotten who you are? You are just an assistant. What right do you have to make a decision? If something happens, will you take responsibility?" Fong Yuqi's face also became cold. "Although I am an assistant, I am also a doctor. I can't watch a patient die. No matter what happens today, I will take full responsibility." "Well, old Hua, Fong Yuqi, since you are so capable, you can do the operation today." "I won't do it." Lu Fei took off his mask and gloves angrily and threw them beside the operating table. Fong Yuqi looked at him and said coldly, "Lu Fei, you really don't deserve to be a doctor." Hua Zi and had no time to pay attention to Lu Fei. He opened the pot and fed Fong Zixiong spoonfuls of the medicine juice with a spoon. Lu Fei looked at Fong Yuqi and said angrily, "It seems that you are not willing to be an assistant. Don't think you can replace me like this. I tell you, when today's operation is over, you can't even be a doctor." Fong Yuqi said lightly, "I don't care. I only know that I am still a doctor and I have to be responsible for my patients." She turned to the others in the operating room and said, "I hope you can cooperate with me to complete the next operation. No matter what happens, I promise to take responsibility alone. You don't need to take any responsibility. What we have to do now is to try our best to save people. Dr. Fong, we all listen to you." The others said in unison. "Good, very good. You are going to rebel, aren't you?" Seeing that he had lost control of the operating room, Lu Fei couldn't stand it anymore. He pointed to Fong Yuqi and Hua Zi and cried, "Wait and see. I'll go to the director and sue you now." With that, he stormed out of the operating room. Outside the operating room, a group of policemen were waiting anxiously. Feng Ziying was worried about his brother, and Nalan Wuxia and the others were worried about their comrades. When they saw Lu Fei coming out of the operating room, they immediately surrounded him. Feng Ziying said, "Dr. Lu, how is my brother? Does that pot of traditional Chinese medicine work?" Lu Fei said with a dark face, "Did you find old Hua?" Feng Ziying was stunned and said, "What's wrong, Dr. Lu? Didn't we agree to give my brother traditional Chinese medicine within an hour?" Lu Fei wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare to in front of so many policemen. Finally, he said with a dark face, "Since you believe in traditional Chinese medicine, let it save your brother. From now on, whatever happens in the operating room has nothing to do with me." With that, he left without looking back, ignoring Feng Ziying's shouts. "Captain Nalan, Dr. Tang, what does Dr. Lu mean?" Nalan Wuxia said, "Don't worry about him. I believe Zixiong will be fine." Qin Haodong patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry. As long as he drinks that medicine, your brother will be fine." Feng Ziying nodded. Now that things had come to this, he could only pray and wait. On the other side, in the director's office, Lu Fei said angrily, "Director, I want to complain about Hua Zi and Fong Yuqi. They've gone too far. They don't take the rules of the hospital seriously at all." Director Zhang Lijun sat behind his desk, put down the teacup in his hand, looked at the emotional Lu Fei and said, "Dr. Lu, don't worry. Sit down and talk about it slowly." Lu Fei was the attending physician of the surgery department of their hospital. His surgical skills were very high, and he attached great importance to him. With that, he asked Lu Fei to sit on the sofa opposite him and then asked, "Although old Hua is a little stubborn, he works in the traditional Chinese medicine department and doesn't interfere with your Western medicine department at all. How did he offend you? Besides, isn't Fong Yuqi your assistant? Why do you want to complain about her? Lu Fei said emotionally, Director, you don't know that I was performing a very important operation just now, but old Hua took advantage of his seniority and went too far. He brought his traditional Chinese medicine to my operating table and wanted to give it to my patient who was about to be operated on. Is that so? Zhang Lijun frowned slightly. Hua Zi used to be his father's subordinate and had saved his father's life, so he had always been very tolerant of Hua Zi. That was why the traditional Chinese medicine department had been preserved. But he hadn't expected that the old man would go too far. Lu Fei continued, Director, if people knew that our Guangren hospital gave traditional Chinese medicine to a patient on the operating table, we would definitely be laughed at by our peers and seriously affect our hospital's reputation. More importantly, the patient's life was in danger and he could die at any time, but I couldn't stop him. At the critical moment, Fang Yuqi stood on old Hua's side and said that if I didn't save him, she would save him. If I didn't do the operation, she would do it. How could she be an assistant? I really had no choice but to report to you. We can't let them fool around, or it will seriously affect our hospital's reputation. That's too much. After hearing Lu Fei's words, Zhang Lijun's face changed greatly. He jumped up from his chair and said, Let's go and see what these people want. This is still a hospital, not a place. How can they do this? Director, you must not be polite this time, or our hospital will really be in chaos in the future. Lu Fei followed Zhang Lijun with a smug smile. He continued to add fuel to the fire. He wanted to seize this opportunity to completely bring down the traditional Chinese medicine department. Chapter 372. Thinking of this, he was not so angry. On the contrary, he was secretly happy. By making such a scene, he not only pushed away the responsibility for the risky operation, but also gave him a chance to clean up his old enemy. After such a big thing, it was estimated that Zhang Lijun would no longer care about face this time. He would definitely give Hua Zi a hard time and completely uproot the department of traditional Chinese medicine. Such a modern hospital should not have such a department without any scientific basis. After Lu Fei left, everyone in the operating room turned their attention to the pot of traditional Chinese medicine in Hua Zi's hand. They wondered if it could bring miracles to the patient. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When Hua Zi finished the medicine in his hand, the heart monitor next to him began to change. The heartbeat curve, which had been almost in a straight line, suddenly began to change, and it beat more and more vigorously. 5 minutes later, Feng Zixiong's heart rate curve was no different from that of a normal person. Everyone's eyes widened, including Hua Zi. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. A minute ago, they saw clearly what kind of state Hua Zi was in. He was really in danger and his heart could stop beating at any time. But now, after drinking the pot of black medicine soup, his heart was beating more normally than a normal person's. What on earth was he drinking? Was it traditional Chinese medicine or magic soup? Fang Yuqi was the first to recover from the shock. She said to Hua Zi, Mr. Hua, what kind of medicine is this? How can it have such a great effect on the heart? It's a miracle. Hua Zi said, I don't have this ability. This is traditional Chinese medicine made by Tang Feng. It's called pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Its effect is really amazing. It deserves the word magic. Amazing, it's amazing. I never thought that traditional Chinese medicine could have such a great effect. As a surgeon, Fang Yuqi didn't really reject traditional Chinese medicine, but she didn't believe in it either. This pot of medicine soup had completely changed her mind. Dr. Zhang, hurry up with the operation. I don't know how long this pot of medicine soup will last. We have to save the patient as soon as possible. Hua Zi certainly wouldn't leave before the operation was over. Although Fang Yuqi had just said that she would take responsibility for the operation, how could he blame it on a young man? If the operation was unsuccessful, he would bear all the responsibility. Don't worry, old man. According to the patient's current condition, the success rate of the surgery is at least 90%, or even 100%. Fang Yuqi was full of confidence. Holding the scalpel in her hand, there was a fiery look in her eyes. In fact, her surgical skills were not low, but she was too inexperienced and was suppressed by Lu Fei, so she could only play the role of an assistant. Today, she finally had the opportunity to show her skills. With the cooperation of other medical staff, the surgery began in an orderly manner. Outside the operating room, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the other side of the corridor. Zhang Lijun was in front, Lu Fei was behind him, and there were a few more people in charge of other hospitals next to them. All of them looked serious and even angry. "Dean, do you smell it? This is a modern hospital, yet the entire corridor is filled with the smell of Chinese medicine. How are other patients going to see this?" Lu Fei seized every opportunity to discredit traditional Chinese medicine and add fuel to the fire for Hua Ziyan. Hearing the voice, Nalan Wuxia and the others immediately looked back. Seeing Lu Fei and the others, Qin Haodong immediately understood what was going on. Now it was not convenient for him to attract too much attention, so he whispered in Nalan Wuxia's ear, "Now is the critical moment of the operation. These people are here to make trouble. We must stop them." Nalan Wuxia understood and waved her hand. She said to her policeman, "Guard the operating room. No one is allowed to enter without my order." Lu Fei trotted ahead of Zhang Lijun and said to Nalan Wuxia and the others, "Make way, everyone. We're going in." Feng Ziying didn't like the doctor who ran away. If it weren't for the influence, he would have pressed Lu Fei to the ground and kicked him hard. He said with a cold face, "What are you going to do? My brother is having an operation. If you want to go in, you have to wait until the operation is over." With the dean behind him, Lu Fei was much more confident. He shouted, "Although you are policemen, this is the operating room of our hospital. You have no right to stop us from going in. Get out of the way." Nalan Wuxia said, "Dr. Lu, although this is your hospital, our policemen are lying inside. No one can go in before the operation is over." "You." Lu Fei wanted to get angry, but he saw the warning on Nalan Wuxia's shoulder. He calmed down and said, "Officer, you still don't know that those people are playing with the lives of your policemen inside. I'm going in to stop them. You don't have to worry about that." Nalan Wuxia said sarcastically, "I remember Dr. Lu just said that no matter what happens inside, it has nothing to do with you, so you don't have to worry about it." "You." In the face of Nalan Wuxia, who didn't give him any face, Lu Fei had no choice but to turn back to Zhang Lijun and several hospital leaders and say, "Director, these people don't agree with us to stop this operation." Zhang Lijun couldn't do anything in the face of the angry policeman. He glanced around and suddenly saw Wang Jianfeng standing next to him with his hands behind his back. They had dealt with each other several times before, so they were familiar with each other. He stepped forward and said, "Director Wang, I didn't expect you to be here." Wang Jianfeng said, "It's our policemen who are injured inside." Zhang Lijun said, "Director Wang, to tell you the truth, there has never been an operation like this in our hospital. I don't think it's appropriate. We must stop it." As soon as he said this, Wang Jianfeng interrupted him and said, "Director Zhang, I don't care whether there is a precedent or not. I just want to ask, if the operation is stopped, what are the chances of my people surviving?" Zhang Lijun turned to look at Lu Fei. After all, Lu Fei was the attending doctor, and he knew the condition of the injured best. "Well, there is basically no chance of survival," Lu Fei quickly explained, "but this has nothing to do with stopping the operation. Before I came out, the patient's heart was about to stop beating. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for long." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a figure rushing over and punching him hard in the face. It was Feng Ziying who did it. He grabbed Lu Fei's collar and scolded, "Bastard, my brother's life is in danger inside. As the attending doctor, you actually ran out. If anything happens to my brother, I will never forgive you." After that, he punched Lu Fei in the face several times in a row, making his nose and face swollen. "Help! Director, help. Lu Fei covered his face and asked Zhang Lijun for help. Nalan Wuxia waved her hand, and several people immediately went up and pulled Feng Ziying back. Although she also hated this irresponsible Lu Fei, after all, Feng Ziying was a policeman. It was not good to be too impulsive. Although Feng Ziying was pulled back, he still looked at Lu Fei with fire in his eyes. Lu Fei dared not look at him at all. He turned to Zhang Lijun and said, Director, it's not that I don't want to save people, but they don't do what I ask at all. Zhang Lijun frowned and said, Lu Fei, no matter what the reason is, as an attending doctor, you can't just let go of the treatment process, can you? He reprimanded Lu Fei, but it was just a formality. Today, it was Hua Ziyan and Fang Yuqi who were responsible. Turning back, Zhang Lijun said to Wang Jianfeng, Director Wang, although the injured are now your policemen, you should not interfere with the treatment of our hospital. If so, you will have to bear the consequences independently. Nalan Wuxia had told Wang Jianfeng that Tang Feng was Qin Haodong. She had 100% trust in Qin Haodong's medical skills, so she said without hesitation, Director Zhang, don't worry. I will bear all the consequences. There is only one condition. You can't disturb the treatment inside now. Seeing that Wang Jianfeng had said this, Zhang Lijun naturally could not say anything more. He could only wait outside the operating room. Lu Fei wiped his swollen face, leaned over to Zhang Lijun, and whispered, Director, it's not my fault. They forced me out of the operating room. Zhang Lijun did not speak, but nodded slightly, which made Lu Fei feel a lot more at ease. Time ticked by, and soon, everyone had been waiting for a full hour. Just when everyone was getting a little restless, the red light above the operating theater suddenly went off. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. This meant that the operation was over, but they did not know the result. The operation ended so quickly. The injured must have died on the operating table. You didn't listen to me. Now you're dumbfounded. Lu Fei hid and muttered to himself, showing a trace of schadenfreude. But now his face was swollen, which made him look very strange. No wonder he thought so. Generally speaking, such a big operation would take at least 2 or 3 hours. Now it was over in an hour. From a normal point of view, there would be no good result. Under the gaze of everyone around, the door of the operating room slowly opened, and a figure rushed out. After a short pause, he rushed straight to Qin Haodong. It was Tang Ziyan. He took Qin Haodong's hand and said excitedly, Dr. Tang, where did you get this prescription? He had just seen the magical effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup in the operating room, and he was already very excited. As soon as the door of the operating room opened, he immediately came over to ask what had happened. Qin Haodong naturally could not explain the source of this prescription. Just then, Lu Fei rushed over, pointed to Hua Ziyan and said, Dr. Hua, I have long said that traditional Chinese medicine is not reliable, and that we should believe in Western medicine, which represents science. But you had to give the patient Chinese medicine on the operating table. Now you regret it, don't you? He saw Hua Ziyan's excited look and thought that he wanted to blame Qin Haodong for the failure of the operation. Not only him, but many people had the same idea. Hua Ziyan looked back at Lu Fei and said, I do regret it, but what I regret is that I didn't slap you. You have forgotten your ancestors, and insulted the treasures left by our ancestors again and again. Lu Fei did not show weakness and cried, Hua Ziyan, you still don't realize your mistake after making such a big mistake. How dare you be so stubborn? Chapter 373. Hua Ziyan's expression changed and he said, Now I remember. Lu Fei, you are the doctor in charge of this operation. Can't you take some responsibility? Old Hua, now you remember that I am the doctor in charge. Do you want to beg me? Lu Fei said proudly, Everyone has just heard me. I made it very clear that no matter what happened, this operation has nothing to do with me. His voice was loud and his tone was firm, so that everyone present could hear him clearly. Qin Haodong was amused. The old man looked honest, but he was actually an old fox. With just a few words, he had made Lu Fei run around and completely blocked his way out. A playful smile appeared on Hua Zi's old face and he said jokingly, "I'm relieved. Otherwise, I would be afraid that you would take the credit." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Ziying, who was next to him, couldn't help but get nervous. He stepped forward and said nervously, "Old master, do you mean my brother?" Hua Zi and glanced at him and then at Naylan Wuxia and the others, who looked nervous. He said, "I have good news. Just now, Dr. Tang Feng of our consulting room contributed a dose of magic Chinese medicine, which made the operation very smooth and successful. The patient is now out of danger and is expected to wake up soon. This operation was very difficult. The success was due to Dr. Tang's Chinese medicine, which protected the patient's heart. Although Dr. Tang was not in the operating room, he was the biggest contributor." Speaking of this, he turned to Lu Fei and said, "The success of this operation is not only a miracle for our Guangren hospital, but also a miracle in the history of human medicine. I believe that our hospital will reward you according to your contribution later. Dr. Lu is really noble and selfless. He will never take credit for anything that is not his own." Lu Fei's face changed again and again, and his brain was spinning rapidly. Could it be that the man had really been saved? Impossible, that was impossible. Thinking of Feng Zixiong's heart, which had almost stopped beating, he immediately realized that Hua Zi was setting him up. There was absolutely no credit for him to take, but a big black pot waiting for him. Thinking of this, he said with a smile, "Old Hua, do you think I'm a fool? Do you want me to take responsibility with you? Don't even think about it." When I left the operating room, the patient was already on the verge of death. His heart could stop beating at any time. In such a situation, there was almost no possibility of him surviving. In just 1 hour, you said that the operation was successful and he was out of danger? Aren't you trying to fool a fool? I think he's dead." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a huge fist appear in front of him, and then it smashed into his face with a bang. This punch was so powerful that it directly knocked him to the ground. 2 streams of blood spurted out of his nostrils. It was Feng Ziying. He glared at Lu Fei and shouted, "As a doctor, you're not happy to hear that my brother is fine. Instead, you curse him to die. Are you still human? Do you still have any medical ethics?" "Me?" Lu Fei's nose and mouth were bleeding, but he couldn't say anything. What he said just now was a bit too much. Even Zhang Lijun looked at him with dissatisfaction. At this time, Fang Yuqi also came out of the operating room, followed by 2 nurses pushing Feng Zixiong on the bed. Seeing Zhang Lijun also appear at the door of the operating room, Fang Yuqi was slightly stunned. "Director?" Then she immediately understood. Lu Fei said that he was going to complain to the director. It seemed that he had really gone and moved the director to the operating room. "Dr. Fang, what the hell is going on?" Zhang Lijun's tone was full of dissatisfaction. He also didn't believe everything Hua Zi had just said. In his opinion, traditional Chinese medicine was good for treating minor illnesses such as colds and fevers, but it couldn't be of much help in surgery. Fang Yuqi said, "Director, I had a disagreement with Dr. Lu during the operation. As an assistant, I completed the operation. It's my fault. No matter how the hospital deals with it, I have no opinion." Her attitude was sincere, but Hua Zi didn't care. He stepped forward and said, "What's the punishment? You've successfully completed this epic surgery and saved a life. At the same time, you've also redeemed the reputation of our hospital. Not only can you not be punished for such a great contribution, but you should also be rewarded heavily." Zhang Lijun looked at him doubtfully and asked, "You mean, the patient was really saved?" Hua Zi said, "Of course it's true. I won't lie casually." Zhang Lijun still didn't believe it and turned to look at Fang Yuqi. Fang Yuqi also nodded and said, "Yes, director. The operation was very successful. The patient is completely out of danger. It's really a success. That's great, that's really great. Hearing the news, the policemen gathered around cheered. They had thought the operation had failed and Feng Zixiong was dead, so no one dared to approach the bed. Feng Ziying burst into tears of joy and immediately rushed to the bed. The frightened nurses hurried to stop him. The patient has just had an operation. Don't touch him. Don't touch him. Don't touch him. Feng Ziying looked at his brother in the hospital bed. Although his face was still a little pale, his breathing was steady. He was indeed alive. He couldn't help but be too happy to speak. Impossible, it's impossible. You must be lying. Lu Fei got up from the ground and strode to the bed. When he saw Feng Zixiong breathing normally, his face became paler than Feng Zixiong's after the operation. Only then did he realize that Hua Zi and had not lied to him. He had really given up a great credit. But he couldn't understand how Feng Zixiong could be saved in that situation. But the impossible was right in front of him. After the shock, great remorse rose from the bottom of his heart. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He wanted to slap himself in the face immediately. A hero policeman who had arrested a suspect and a dying patient who had been stabbed in the heart by a dagger. Rescuing a patient in this situation would undoubtedly become a great medical miracle and the focus of public opinion. No matter who completed such an operation, they would receive limitless glory and great praise. Money, fame, and everything else would be at their fingertips. All of this should have belonged to him. He was the attending doctor, but he was like a moron. He had repeatedly distanced himself from the operation and repeatedly stated that he would not take any responsibility. Now, the medical miracle and the doctor's honor had nothing to do with him. At this moment, he really felt heartache. After being stunned for a long time, Lu Fei finally raised his hand and slapped himself in the face. Then he squatted in the corner and cried. What the hell was going on? Such a great merit was actually kicked away by him. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Nailan Wuxia, Wang Jianfeng, and others were happy that Feng Zixiong had been successfully rescued. Zhang Lijun was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. As a private hospital, Guangren Hospital had never been able to compete with large public hospitals such as Jiangnan Hospital. However, with the success of this operation, the reputation of their hospital would be greatly enhanced in the future. It would also let people see the strength of their hospital. Dr. Feng, you did a good job. You are the pride of our hospital. Zhang Lijun said with a smile, from today on, you are officially the chief physician of the surgery department, and Lu Fei will be your assistant. After crying for a long time, Lu Fei's mood had just improved a little. When he heard this, he cried even more sadly. Damn it, is there anything more painful than this? He went to complain about them and finally got the dean to come. Instead of bringing down Feng Yuqi and Hua Zi, he lost his position as a chief physician. But before he finished crying, he heard Feng Yuqi say, "Thank you, director, but I don't want to use him as my assistant. I don't feel comfortable with a doctor like him who has no patience in his eyes and can run away at any time on the operating table." Damn it. Lu Fei suddenly felt like he had been F***ed. He was also a dignified surgeon. An hour ago, he was still the director of surgery, but in the blink of an eye, he had fallen to the point where he could not even be used as an assistant. Was there anything more tragic than this? Zhang Lijun turned to look at Hua Zi and said, "Mr. Hua, you have done a lot of work this time. I misunderstood traditional Chinese medicine and treated the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine poorly. From today on, the hospital will increase investment in the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine, develop traditional Chinese medicine in our hospital, and strive to find an innovative way of combining traditional Chinese and Western medicine." Hua Zi An's face was full of joy. His dream was to develop and strengthen the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Now the day had finally come. He said, "Director, all the credit belongs to Dr. Tang. I dare not compete for it. Without his prescription, the operation would not have been successful. He looked back for Qin Haodong, but he didn't see him. Qin Haodong came to the hospital undercover. He didn't want to be in the limelight or take credit, so he naturally left. Director, Dr. Tang, seems to have left. Hua Zian couldn't help sighing. He has such good medical skills at such a young age, and the rarest thing is that he is not arrogant. Director, Dr. Tang is definitely a talent of our hospital. You must keep him. I don't have many years to live. In the future, we will have to rely on young people like him to develop traditional Chinese medicine in our hospital. At this time, he already had the idea of training Qin Haodong as an heir. Zhang Lijun said in surprise, "Who is Dr. Tang? Why didn't I notice such an excellent talent before?" Hua Zian said, "Dr. Tang's name is Tang Feng. Today is his first day at work. He was introduced by Hao yesterday. He said he was his friend. Hao did a good job this time. He found a rare talent for our hospital." Hearing that this excellent Dr. Tang was found by his son, Zhang Lijun also showed a smile of relief and said, "I'll find time to talk to Dr. Tang in a few days." When things were done here, he took his people back to his office. Feng Zixiong was out of danger. Wang Jianfeng and Nailan Wuxia also left the hospital with their people, leaving only Feng Ziying. There was no clue about the serial murder case, and they still had a lot to do. Hua Zian hurried back to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic and saw Qin Haodong sitting in a chair, leisurely drinking tea. "Boy, why did you come back? Do you know how rare today's opportunity is? If you can get the appreciation of the director, then you will have a meteoric rise in our hospital in the future. Our traditional Chinese medicine clinic." Hua Zian was talking non-stop. Qin Haodong seemed to be prepared. He picked up a piece of A4 paper from the table and handed it to him, saying, "Old Hua, are you interested in the formula of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup?" "Yes. Yes. I have it." At this time, Hua Zian's expression was like that of a prisoner who had been in prison for 10 years and suddenly saw a naked beauty. He stared at the formula in Qin Haodong's hand without blinking. Chapter 374. After witnessing the effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup with his own eyes, the old man, who had been pursuing traditional Chinese medicine all his life, was full of curiosity about the formula of this traditional Chinese medicine. However, this kind of secret formula was generally never leaked, so he was too embarrassed to ask Qin Haodong. Unexpectedly, Qin Haodong took the initiative to put the formula in front of him. For a moment, he couldn't believe the facts in front of him and was not in the mood to think about anything else. "It's a gift for you." Qin Haodong waved his hand and gave the formula to Hua Zian. "Are you serious? You're not kidding?" Hua Zian's hands began to tremble as he held the formula. He knew very well the value of this formula, which could be said to be priceless in the eyes of some people. "Of course it's true. Formulas are used to treat patients. Giving them to you will make full use of their value." "That's great, that's great." Hua Zian held the formula and was extremely excited. "Mr. Hua, I'm giving you the formula, but don't spread it easily." Qin Haodong said, "I'm not asking you to keep it a secret, but this formula is very special. Only people who know the mysteries of traditional Chinese medicine can decoct it. Like the little nurse today, the medicine she decocted not only cannot cure diseases, but will also harm people. Another thing to note is that the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup must be boiled and used immediately. If it gets cold, it can't be used again, which means that its validity period is less than an hour." "Oh. I'll write it down." Although the requirements of this formula were very high, it was very effective, so Hua Zian was still very excited. He stared at the A4 paper without blinking, as if he wanted to engrave the formula in his mind. Just then, Qin Haodong's phone rang. It was Nailan Wuxia. He knew that Nailan Wuxia would definitely tell him about today's case. Ignoring Hua Zian, who was almost crazy, he picked up the phone and answered it. After the phone was connected, Nalan Wuxia said, "Thank you. If it weren't for you, Feng Zixiong would have died today. I'm a doctor. This is nothing." Qin Haodong asked, "What happened today? How could anyone be so seriously injured? Why did you send him to Guangren Hospital instead of Jiangnan Hospital with better medical conditions?" Nalan Wuxia said, "Here's the thing. According to the plan we've made, all the police have begun to investigate suspects, focusing on groups such as Taoists, gods, and witches. According to the public, an old Taoist had suddenly appeared in a community not far from Guangren Hospital some time ago. The old Taoist had rented a house, but his behavior was very strange. He rarely went out. After receiving the news, Feng Zixiong felt that the old Taoist was very suspicious, so he brought another policeman to investigate. He did not expect to be attacked by the old Taoist as soon as he opened the door. Moreover, the old Taoist was extremely skilled. He casually stabbed a knife into Feng Zixiong's chest and then ran away. Because Feng Zixiong was seriously injured, and the crime scene was the closest to Guangren Hospital, the situation was urgent, so he was sent there. "I see." Qin Haodong frowned, and his brain began to spin rapidly. When such a suspicious old Taoist suddenly appeared in the midst of successive murders, he was naturally very suspicious. He asked, "What does that old Taoist look like? Did he have any obvious characteristics?" Because the old Taoist was too fast, our people didn't see him clearly. They only know that the old Taoist looked not young, should be 60 or 70 years old, wearing a Taoist robe. Qin Haodong said, "It seems that the old Taoist is also a warrior. Inform your people to find his whereabouts again. Don't act rashly. Let's go and have a look together." "Yes. I've already passed the order." Nalan Wuxia said, "Now the old Taoist is very suspicious, but we can't confirm that he is the murderer of the murder. Maybe the murderer is someone else. How's the progress on your side? Have you found any suspicious people?" Qin Haodong said, "I checked the records of the archives of Guangren Hospital this morning. In the past month, there have been more than a dozen doctors who have inquired about information in the archives. At present, we can't further narrow the target. Half of the 3 days have passed. We have to hurry, or someone may be killed again." Nalan Wuxia said, "By the way, today the experts invited by the province conducted another autopsy on the body. They came to a new conclusion. Judging from the cut marks on the body, the murderer must be left-handed." "Left-handed?" Qin Haodong thought of something and said, "This clue is very valuable. With it, we can quickly check the dozen doctors. Whoever is left-handed is the most suspicious." Nalan Wuxia said, "You must be careful. Contact us if anything happens. Don't worry. Don't worry about my safety." Qin Haodong hung up the phone. As soon as he put away the phone, Hua Zi and ran over, took the prescription of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup, and asked all the questions in his mind. Qin Haodong had only respect for the old man who loved traditional Chinese medicine. He answered all of Hua Zi and's questions without reservation. Soon, Hua Zi and felt that he had almost finished his research. He ran into the pharmacy with the prescription and began to test the medicine. The whole traditional Chinese medicine clinic was left to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong became the doctor on duty. He began to think about how to check the information of the doctors obtained in the archives and see the patients who came in from time to time. But by the time he got off work, he hadn't come up with a clue. He couldn't go from one clinic to another to see if the doctors were left-handed. This would inevitably arouse other people's suspicions and maybe alert the enemy. It was time to get off work. The hospital stopped registering, but Hua Zi and was still in the pharmacy and had no intention of coming out. Qin Haodong didn't want to disturb him, so he changed his clothes and was about to leave. Just then, a woman came in. The woman was about 30 years old and had very delicate facial features. She wore a pair of close-fitting jeans and a t-shirt, which outlined the perfect curve of her figure vividly. The woman glanced at Qin Haodong and said with a smile, "Dr. Tang, I want to invite you to dinner tonight. Is that okay? Invite me to dinner? Chin Haodong looked at the woman again. She was vaguely familiar, but he had never seen this person in his memory. He asked, do we know each other? Chin Haodong was really confused. The woman called him Dr. Tang. They should have just met today, but he really didn't remember where he had seen this woman. If she didn't know him, now that he had lost his handsome face, how could a beautiful woman take the initiative to invite him to dinner? The woman giggled, showing her white teeth, and said, Dr. Tang, you forget that I'm Fong Yuqi. Oh. Dr. Fong. Chin Haodong understood what was going on. When he was in the operating room, Fong Yuqi was wearing a white coat, a white hat, and a big mask on her face, with only her eyes exposed. This gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't figure out who it was. At the same time, he was slightly surprised that Fong Yuqi was such a beautiful woman. Fong Yuqi said, Dr. Tang, you've helped me so much today. I want to invite you to dinner. Do you have time? Forget it. Actually, I didn't help much. Chin Haodong didn't want Tang Fong to meet too many people, so he refused directly. Fong Yuqi's eyes widened, obviously surprised. She usually refused other people's invitations. She didn't expect to be refused the first time she took the initiative to invite someone to dinner. Oh. All right then. She was used to being proud and arrogant. After being refused, she didn't know what to say, so she turned to leave. Chin Haodong suddenly, he thought of something. Fong Yuqi was a surgeon. She naturally knew which doctors in the hospital were left-handed. It was best to investigate from her without arousing other suspicions. Thinking of this, he hurriedly cried, Dr. Fong, wait a minute. Fong Yuqi turned around and looked at him in surprise. She didn't understand why he called her now that he had just refused her. Chin Haodong said, Dr. Fong, you misunderstood me. In fact, I want to say that it's the first time we meet. How can a man like you treat me to dinner? It's my treat. Beautiful lady, what would you like to eat? Fong Yuqi's face immediately eased a lot. Although Dr. Tang looked a little ordinary, he had good medical skills and knew how to behave. You helped me. Of course, it's my treat. She was in a good mood today as an attending doctor. The most important thing was that she would no longer have to be bullied by Lu Fei. In the past, Lu Fei was afraid that she would show her talent, so he suppressed her and never gave her a chance to show herself. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined that her dream would come true today, and the greatest contributor to all of this was Tang Fong before her. Well, since Dr. Fong insists, I won't stand on ceremony. Chin Haodong made 2 180-degree turns in a row, which made Fong Yuqi a little uncomfortable. Then she laughed again. It seemed that Dr. Tang was an interesting person. When they went out of the hospital gate, Fong Yuqi asked, Dr. Tang, did you drive? Chin Haodong laughed and said, no, I can't afford a car as a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. Dr. Tang is really good at joking. Who says traditional Chinese medicine practitioners have no money? I'm afraid the prescription you took out can buy countless cars. Fong Yuqi smiled, pointed to a champagne-colored Volvo next to her and said, then take my car. Chin Haodong got in the car and sat in the passenger seat. Fong Yuqi said, where are we going to eat? I don't know. I just came to Jiangnan, so I'm not familiar with the food there. He still played the role of Tang Fong dutifully. In that case, let's go to eat seafood together. The seafood in Jiangnan is good. Chin Haodong said, a guest should do as the host pleases. Fong Yuqi smiled and nodded, then started the car. Half an hour later, they came to a huge seafood building together. The name of this seafood building was also very special. It was called Shrimp Soldiers and Crab Generals. There were also 2 sculptures of shrimp soldiers and crab generals at the door, welcoming guests with charmingly naive expressions. It was midsummer, and seafood and beer were people's favorite delicacies, so the place was full of guests. When they entered the door, there were no private rooms, so they found a table in the hall and sat down. "What would you like to eat, sir and madam?" a waiter asked politely. Fang Yuqi said, "Dr. Tang, what would you like to eat?" Qin Haodong said, "I've never been to such a big seafood building." "Miss Fang, just order whatever you want." Fang Yuqi didn't stand on ceremony anymore. She said to the waiter, "Bring us 4 of your signature dishes and a bottle of red wine." "Yes, madam. I'll arrange it for you right away." The waiter immediately wrote down the menu excitedly. Customers like this who didn't ask the price were definitely rich. The commission alone could make him a small profit. Chapter 375. Fang Yuqi said to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Tang, is this okay? It's not good to drink beer with seafood. As doctors, we should pay more attention to our health. Let's drink some red wine." "Okay, that's okay." Qin Haodong nodded. While they were ordering, a figure appeared at the door of the restaurant. It was Lu Fei, who had just lost his chief physician's hat today. What happened today made him very depressed. The general manager of this seafood restaurant was his old classmate, so he wanted to come over for a drink. He didn't expect to see Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi as soon as he entered the door. Bastards. After seeing these two people, Lu Fei gnashed his teeth in hatred. In his opinion, these two people had robbed him of his position as chief physician and came here to celebrate. When he heard Fang Yuqi order, Lu Fei sneered. He was worried about how to teach them a lesson, and now the opportunity had come. When the waiter came back, Lu Fei waved him over. Because Lu Fei was a regular here, the waiter knew that he was the general manager's classmate. He stepped forward and said politely, "Hello, Dr. Lu." Lu Fei asked, "What did the guest at that table order?" The waiter said, "The lady didn't say. She asked me to arrange 4 signature dishes and a bottle of red wine." "Well, listen to me and arrange it for them." After Lu Fei finished speaking, the waiter said with a surprised look, "Dr. Lu, according to the rules, we should show the guests after arranging the dishes. We can only order if the guests agree. The dishes you mentioned are too expensive. I guess the guests won't agree. Don't show them. Just order directly." The waiter hurriedly said, "I can't do that, Dr. Lu. If the guests don't pay the bill, I can't afford it even if I sell myself." Just then, a middle-aged man in a suit came over. When he saw Lu Fei, he patted him on the shoulder and said, "Doctor, why don't you go upstairs? What are you doing here?" This man was Song Wu, the general manager of the hotel. Lu Fei took Song Wu's arm and whispered, "Do you see those two people? They have a grudge against me. Now you have to help me." He gave a brief account of how he had lost the title of chief physician this afternoon, but in his words, Fang Yuqi had become a woman who had climbed into the bed of the director, and he had become a victim. Song Wu and Lu Fei were birds of a feather. He often asked Lu Fei to do things for him. At this time, he patted his chest and said, "Brother, what do you need me to do?" "That's all you have to do," Lu Fei told him what he had told the waiter. After hearing this, Song Wu said with embarrassment, "Brother, is this okay? The things you mentioned add up to 300,000 to 400,000. What if they can't pay the bill? What should I do? I'm just the general manager of the hotel, not the boss. If that's the case, I'll be laid off. I still have a family to support." "Don't worry. That woman has just become the chief surgeon. I'll go with you to collect the debt later. She definitely won't make a big deal out of this. Otherwise, the whole hospital will know that she came here to eat and dash after becoming the chief surgeon. Besides, her family background is very good. She doesn't lack money, so she will definitely pay the bill." Will this work?" Song Wu was still a little worried. "Why not? This will not only make them bleed, help me vent my anger, but also help you make a large commission." "What a good thing," Lu Fei said, taking out a golden bank card from his pocket. "I have 500,000 in this card. If they don't pay, I'll pay for it. Is that okay?" Song Wu immediately smiled and said, "Brother, if you say so, then I have a plan. I'll go and arrange it now." Lu Fei looked back at Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi with a sneer. "How dare you fight against me? I'll make you bleed first." At the table, Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi were talking happily. Qin Haodong came with a purpose. He asked, "Dr. Fang, where did you graduate from? How many years have you been in Guangren Hospital?" Fang Yuqi said, "I'm a doctor of medicine who came back from studying in M country. As of this summer, I've been in Guangren Hospital for 3 years. A doctor of medicine from M country should be very popular in Huaxia. Why did you come to Guangren Hospital? Didn't you consider a large public hospital like Jiangnan Hospital?" "When I came back, I also received an invitation from a public hospital, but I felt that the interpersonal relationships in public hospitals were too complicated. There were many other factors besides medical skills, so I chose Guangren Hospital." Fang Yuqi smiled bitterly. "Later, I learned that seniority and interpersonal relationships are the national conditions of Huaxia. This situation exists in both public and private hospitals, so I've been Lu Fei's assistant for 3 years." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "In terms of salary, private hospitals should be a little better than public hospitals, right?" Fang Yuqi said, "Not bad. My annual salary is 300,000, which is a lot compared to ordinary people. But people who study medicine pay a lot. My classmates are already mothers of 2 children, and I'm still an old girl who can't get married." Qin Haodong laughed and said, "In fact, it's not your fault. You're too good. You have a high education and are beautiful. Ordinary people really can't muster up the courage to pursue you. For example, I can only look up to a beautiful woman like you." While they were talking, the waiter brought up the dishes one by one. Then he took a bottle of wine with English letters on it and said, "Would you like to open the red wine?" Fang Yuqi was sighing with emotion at what Qin Haodong had just said. She said carelessly, "Open it." The waiter opened the red wine with a bang. Qin Haodong looked at him in surprise and said, "What's wrong with you? Why are your hands shaking?" The waiter said nervously, "No. It's nothing. Maybe the air conditioner here is too high." After that, he poured red wine into their glasses and hurried away. Although the waiter's behavior was a little abnormal, Qin Haodong didn't care about the serial murders and continued to chat with Fang Yuqi. He picked up his glass and said, "Congratulations on your promotion to chief physician." Fang Yuqi raised her glass and gently touched Qin Haodong's. "Thank you." Qin Haodong's heart skipped a beat. Fang Yuqi was holding the glass with her left hand, which showed that she was left-handed. Putting down his glass, Qin Haodong said, "Dr. Fang, you are left-handed. I heard that left-handed people have an advantage in many industries, such as table tennis and badminton, which make it difficult for opponents to guard against. I wonder if being a doctor has an advantage in this respect?" Fang Yuqi took a sip of red wine and said, "It's not an advantage, but it's not inconvenient. It's the same with the left hand and the right hand. The key is your level of surgery." Seeing that the conversation was almost over, Qin Haodong began to slowly get to the point. "In our hospital, are there many doctors who operate with their left hand like you?" Fang Yuqi didn't think much about it. She just thought Qin Haodong was chatting casually. She said, "Not too many. I'm left-handed, so is Lu Fei. There is also Dr. Zhang Yang, who is about to retire, but he is old now and does very few operations." Qin Haodong went through the list of names he had obtained from the archives in his mind. There was no doctor named Zhang Yang on it. Now the scope of targets was rapidly narrowing down to Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi. He just needed to check them out. While he was thinking about the case, Fang Yuqi said, "Dr. Tang, who did you learn your medical skills from?" "Family heirloom. I learned it from my grandfather when I was a child." Fang Yuqi said, "I didn't have much contact with traditional Chinese medicine before. In M country, the idea I received was that traditional Chinese medicine was unscientific and that traditional Chinese medicine practitioners were liars. But today, I saw the magic of traditional Chinese medicine from you. This is a field that Western medicine can't get involved in. Then they ate and chatted. Through the conversation, Qin Haodong felt that Fang Yuqi was kind and straightforward, not like a murderer, but it was hard to say. Maybe she hid it well enough. About 2 hours later, when they were almost finished, Fang Yuqi raised her hand and called the waiter over. "Bill, please." Then she took out her wallet to pay. Qin Haodong didn't say anything. It wasn't that he was stingy. It was not cheap to eat in such a seafood restaurant, and he was just a small traditional Chinese medicine practitioner now. It was better not to rush to pay the bill, or it would easily arouse suspicion. "Okay." The waiter said, "Miss, you spent 408,000 yuan in total. The manager said that you can pay 400,000 yuan. What the hell? I spent more than 400,000 yuan on 4 dishes. This hotel is so rip-off." Qin Haodong understood why the waiter was trembling when he opened the wine. It turned out that he was nervous or excited before ripping people off. Fang Yuqi was also shocked. Although she had a good financial condition, it didn't mean that she had no bottom line. She couldn't be ripped off in confusion. "Did you make a mistake? We only had 4 dishes. How could it cost so much? 4 dishes cost more than 400,000 yuan. Are you running a black shop?" Hearing the conversation between him and the waiter, the guests at the next tables all looked this way. 4 dishes cost more than 400,000 yuan, which was really scary. The waiter took the menu and said, "Miss, we are not a black shop. The prices are clearly marked. Look, what you have eaten is the most valuable thing in our shop." Seeing that Fang Yuqi ignored his bill, the waiter read it directly. "What you have eaten is crocodile tail stew, 28,000 yuan per dish, wild yellow croaker, 16,000 yuan per caddy. Yours is 3 caddies and 2 tails. This bottle of red wine is 15-year-old gold Romanée-Conti, 200,000 yuan per bottle, a total of 408,000 yuan. Our goods are genuine. Even if you sue us to the Bureau of Commodity Prices, we won't be afraid." The matter had been made clear. On the contrary, the waiter was confident. If the business was done, he would also get a good commission. Fang Yuqi said with a cold face, "I just asked you to arrange 4 signature dishes. Are these the signature dishes of your hotel? How many people in Jiangnan City can afford to eat such dishes? Besides, shouldn't you let me have a look before you place the order? Shouldn't you ask for my opinion in advance before you spend 400,000 yuan?" The others also talked about it. "Yes, why don't you tell people in advance when you sell such expensive things? This is a disguised rip-off. It's a fraud. 400,000 yuan for a meal is enough for an ordinary person to eat for a lifetime." The waiter was already mentally prepared. He put on a helpless face and said, "Miss, you asked me to arrange the dishes. I have already asked for your opinion before opening the wine. You asked me to open it. Don't tell me you don't have money to pay the bill and want to dine and dash. Who wants to dine and dash?" While talking, Song Wu and Lu Fei came together. The waiter pointed to Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi and said, "Manager, it's them. They don't pay for the meal." Chapter 376. Lu Fei glanced at Fang Yuqi and said sarcastically, "Isn't this Dr. Fang? How did you learn to dine and dash as soon as you were promoted to director of surgery?" "It's you. What are you doing here?" Fang Yuqi was still a little surprised that Lu Fei would show up at this time. When Qin Haodong saw Lu Fei appear with the people from the hotel, he knew that today's incident must have been caused by this guy. Lu Fei said with a sinister smile, "Of course I'm here to eat. I didn't expect to see Director Fang dine and dash. What a surprise." Song Wu stepped forward and said, "Madam, I'm the general manager of the seafood restaurant. Please pay the bill." Fang Yuqi said, "I can't pay for this. Your service is not transparent at all. The meal cost 400,000 yuan, and you didn't ask for our permission before you served it. Song Wu sneered and said, "Miss, you arranged the dishes, and you agreed to open the wine. If you are dissatisfied, you can complain, but now you have to pay the bill." Fang Yuqi blushed and said, I did ask the waiter to arrange the dishes, but you should have told me when you arranged such expensive dishes, right? And the bottle of wine just asked me if I could open it. It didn't tell me its price at all." Lu Fei said with a smile, "Director Fang, it's natural to pay for the meal. You've just become a director, and you're eating and dashing here. If your colleagues in the hospital know tomorrow, it will have a bad influence on you." At this time, Fang Yuqi also realized the seriousness of the problem. If this matter got out, everyone would think that she didn't pay for the meal, and no one would listen to her explanation. Anyway, she was a woman, and she had just been promoted. This would be a devastating blow to her reputation. As if reading her mind, Song Wu said, "Madam, pay the bill quickly, or I'll call the police. 400,000 yuan is enough for the police to file a case." This once again hit the nail on the head of Fang Yuqi. She really couldn't afford to be taken to the police station for not paying for the meal. At this point, she could only accept it. She took out a bank card from her pocket and said, "I only brought 200,000 yuan today. I can write you an IOU for the rest and send it to you later." Song Wu was happy. It seemed that his old classmate was right. This woman finally chose to cherish her reputation and keep the peace. With such a big order, his bonus this month would surely be increased. "I'm sorry, miss, our hotel doesn't take credit. Let's see if he can pay the rest of the bill." Fang Yuqi said, "No, it's my treat today, and I ordered the dishes. It has nothing to do with him. Don't worry, I'll send you the rest of the money tomorrow." Qin Haodong nodded in his heart. From this point of view, it could be seen that Fang Yuqi's character was still good. She would rather bear all the consequences than let herself suffer losses. From this point of view, he had to help her. You can't do that." Fang Yuqi didn't expect Lu Fei to be so insidious. Her face turned pale. If Zhang Lijun found out about this, it would definitely have a very bad influence on her. She couldn't afford to lose face. "There's nothing wrong with that. You are the director's employee and the newly promoted director. It's normal for him to care about you." After Lu Fei finished speaking, he burst into laughter again. He was extremely carefree, as if he had vented all the pent-up anger in his heart. After laughing, he took out his cell phone and was about to call Zhang Lijun. Fang Yuqi's face was pale. She didn't want this to happen, but she couldn't stop it. At this time, she was full of regret. Why had she been so careless today? She should have ordered the meal herself. Just when she was at a loss, she heard Qin Haodong say, "Wait a minute." Lu Fei looked up at Qin Haodong and said disdainfully, "What, do you want to pay the bill?" In his opinion, Qin Haodong was a Chinese medicine practitioner, and his clothes were less than 1,000 yuan. How could he have 200,000 yuan? "I don't have that much money." Lu Fei's expression was even more disdainful. "Don't talk if you don't have money. Do you want to show off because Director Fang is beautiful? I tell you, not everyone can be a hero and save the beauty. You have to have money in your pocket. A poor man like you should go back to sleep as soon as possible." Qin Haodong didn't care, as if he hadn't heard his sarcasm, and said, "I really don't have money, but isn't Dr. Lu rich?" Lu Fei glanced at him and sneered, "I do have money, but it has nothing to do with you." "Of course it has something to do with you." Qin Haodong looked at Lu Fei with an imperceptible light in his eyes. He directly used mind manipulating. Since this guy wanted to play dirty, let's see who could win. He continued, "With your ability, you wouldn't have been able to perform the surgery today. At least, you wouldn't have been able to save the patient. At the critical moment, it was Dr. Fang who stepped forward and helped you get through this difficult situation. She saved your face. Shouldn't you thank her?" Fang Yuqi didn't know why Qin Haodong suddenly mentioned this. It was like a slap in the face to Lu Fei, adding fuel to the fire. But to her surprise, Lu Fei didn't get angry. On the contrary, he nodded very cooperatively and said, "Yes, I really should thank Dr. Fong." "That's right. A man should be grateful, otherwise what's the difference between him and an animal?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Since you're grateful, you should show some sincerity. You'll pay for Dr. Fong's meal today. Do you have any problem with that?" "No problem. No problem. Dr. Fong has helped me so much. It's only right for me to invite him to dinner." After he said this, not only Fong Yuqi looked as if she had seen an alien, but even Song Wu was stunned. Wasn't his old classmate going to mess with these two people? Why did his attitude suddenly change 180 degrees and he began to please the other party? Regardless of what they thought, Lu Fei directly took the bank card out of his pocket, handed it to Song Wu and said, "I'll pay for Dr. Fong's meal. Now pay by card." Song Wu didn't know what was wrong with Lu Fei. He whispered in his ear, "Are you crazy? This is 400,000 yuan. It's not a small amount." Lu Fei said carelessly, "Dr. Fong helped me save face today. She's like a second parent to me. It's natural for me to pay for her. Cut the crap and swipe the card." Song Wu was stunned, but he couldn't refuse to accept the bill. Seeing Lu Fei's firm attitude, he could only hand the card to the waiter next to him and let him pay by card. Soon, the waiter came back with the bill and handed it to Fong Yuqi. Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Dr. Lu paid for it. Keep the bill for him as a souvenir." After that, he handed the bill to Lu Fei. Lu Fei took the bill and said gratefully, "Thank you, Dr. Tang. Thank you for giving me a chance to express my gratitude today. And thank you, Dr. Fong, for helping me so much today." Fong Yuqi was completely dumbfounded and thought to herself, "Crazy, Lu Fei is completely crazy." Qin Haodong patted Lu Fei on the shoulder and said as if praising a child, "You did a good job today. Remember, you must learn to be grateful." "Sure, I'll work hard in the future." Lu Fei's face was full of flattery. Song Wu couldn't bear to look at that dirty look and got goosebumps. "Let's go." With that, Qin Haodong took Fong Yuqi, who was puzzled, out of the restaurant. When they got in the car, Fong Yuqi was still in a daze and hadn't come to her senses. Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Dr. Fong, can you still drive?" Fong Yuqi patted her towering chest, pulled herself together and said, "Dr. Tang, what's going on? Why did Lu Fei suddenly pay for us? Is he out of his mind?" Qin Haodong laughed and said, "Who knows? Maybe he found his conscience, or maybe, as you said, he's out of his mind. But how is that possible? That's 400,000 yuan. Fong Yuqi still felt that her brain was not enough. "It's nothing. Maybe Dr. Lu is rich, and rich people are capricious." Qin Haodong said jokingly, "Hurry up and drive home. If Dr. Lu regrets it, it will be troublesome." Fong Yuqi shook her head, but there was nothing she could do. She started the car and drove forward. Qin Haodong said again, "Dr. Fong, how much money can Lu Fei make a year? How can he be so generous as to give 400,000 yuan so easily?" Fong Yuqi had almost recovered. She said, "Lu Fei's salary is higher than mine, about 500,000 yuan a year. That's a good income, but he's a gambler. I heard that he lost all his money a few years ago and used his house to pay off his gambling debts. But since last year, I don't know why he suddenly became rich. He not only bought a new mansion, but also spent lavishly. I don't know how he got the money." "Oh." Qin Haodong nodded but said nothing more. "Dr. Tang, where are you going?" Fong Yuqi asked. "Take me back to the hospital. I'll stay in the hotel across the street." Soon, Fong Yuqi drove Qin Haodong to the gate of Guangren Hospital and then drove home alone. Qin Haodong didn't go back to the hotel. Lu Fei was getting more and more suspicious. He had read the files, performed surgery with his left hand, and suddenly became rich a year ago. He could give 400,000 yuan casually, which greatly increased the possibility that he was the murderer. He had to find out. Shortly after Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi left, Lu Fei's body suddenly shook slightly, and his eyes returned to normal. He turned to Song Wu and said, "Brother, what did I just do? What's wrong with you today? You're acting strangely. Don't you know what you just did?" Song Wu said, "Are you bewitched today?" Originally, he had said that he would ruthlessly scam that little girl, but not long after, he had to pay for her bill himself. "Tell me, is there something wrong with your head? You can't do that even if you want to hit on her, can you?" Before Song Wu could finish, Lu Fei said in shock, "What did you say?" "I paid for Fang Yuqi." "Yes, you paid 400,000 yuan for her, and then you said thank you to her." Lu Fei grabbed him by the shoulder, his eyes almost bulging out. Are you serious? Are you sure you're not kidding me? I really paid 400,000 yuan for them? Of course it's true. I'm not kidding. The bill is still in your pocket." Lu Fei took out the $400,000 bill from his pocket and roared crazily, "Song Wu, why didn't you stop me? This is $400,000. I can't wait to kill them both. Why should I pay them?" Chapter 377. No wonder he was so angry. Although he had some money now, 400,000 yuan was not a small amount. What's more, he had set up a trap for Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi, but in the end, he paid the bill himself. What was going on? Wasn't he playing with himself? Song Wu said innocently, "Can you blame me for this? You insisted on paying, and I couldn't stop you. Who knows what's wrong with you? 400,000 yuan, that's 400,000 yuan. Lu Fei was so distressed that he grabbed Song Wu and said, "Old classmate, you're my brother, aren't you? You'll get the money back to me when I pay it to your hotel, right?" Song Wu pushed him away and said, "Are you kidding me? Although we have a good relationship, the 400,000 yuan is in the hotel's account. How can I give it back to you casually? The boss checks the account every week. If there's a gap of 400,000 yuan, it's not a small amount. How can I explain it to the boss? That is to say, you can't give the money back to me?" Lu Fei cried with bloodshot eyes. "Of course not. You paid the bill yourself. Can you blame anyone else?" Song Wu was getting angrier and angrier. "You didn't listen to me just now, and now you're asking me for money. How can there be such a good thing? Bastard, how dare you cheat me of my money?" Lu Fei had lost his mind. He raised his hand and punched Song Wu in the face, giving him a panda eye. "How dare you hit me, bastard?" Song Wu was a short and fat man. His body had been hollowed out by wine and women over the years. He was no match for Lu Fei, but he had a large number of security guards. "Come on, throw this bastard out of here." Although the security guards didn't know why the manager had suddenly quarreled with Lu Fei, they didn't hesitate when they heard the order. They swarmed Lu Fei to the ground and then carried him out of the hotel gate. It was a heavy fall. Lu Fei struggled for a long time before he got up. He turned to the hotel and scolded, "Song Wu, wait for me." At this time, he slowly calmed down and recalled what had just happened in the hotel. Why did he suddenly lose his mind? Why did he rush to pay for Fang Yuqi? Could it be that he was really possessed? Just as he was thinking about this, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. He took out his phone and glanced at the phone number on it. His expression changed slightly, and then he pressed the answer button. A deep voice came from the other side of the phone. "Old place, hurry over. There's a big deal to be done." Lu Fei said, "Can't we do it another day? I have something on my hands today." First, he lost his position as the director. Then, he lost 400,000 yuan. Then, he was taught a lesson by the hotel's security. He was in a terrible mood. "Absolutely not. You must come here immediately. I don't know what's wrong with the police these days. They've almost turned the whole Jiangnan city upside down." Once they find out our secrets, not only will I be finished, but you will also be in trouble. I've just contacted the buyer, and he'll come over tonight to collect the goods. So, we have to finish this business and send the goods away. Then, we can enjoy our lives in peace. After listening to him, Lu Fei also knew that this matter had to be done, so he said, I'll go there now. After hanging up the phone, he drove his BMW straight out of the suburbs, but he didn't notice that a black shadow appeared behind him. Lu Fei drove out of the city and came to an abandoned dock by the sea. He parked the car, looked around vigilantly, and then walked into the dock. This used to be a dock in Jiangnan City. Later, it was abandoned for some reason and had been idle here for many years. Because it was too desolate, few people came here on weekdays. Lu Fei came to an inconspicuous small house next to the dock. He raised his hand and knocked on the door 3 times. He paused for 2 seconds, then knocked twice, and then knocked 4 times in succession. After knocking, he quietly waited in front of the door. After about 10 seconds, the door slowly opened a gap. A bald head poked out and asked, "Who is it? Why are you knocking on the door in the middle of the night?" "It's me," Lu Fei said as he turned his head to let the man see his face clearly. After seeing Lu Fei's face, the bald man immediately smiled and said familiarly, "It's Dr. Lu. Come in quickly. The boss has been waiting for you for a long time." After that, he opened the door, let Lu Fei in, and then closed the door with a bang. Inside the room, there were already several people holding guns, staring at the door with great vigilance. When they saw that it was Lu Fei, they all put away their guns. "Dr. Lu, please come with me." The bald man took Lu Fei directly to the inner room, then patted the side. The ground slowly cracked, revealing an underground passage. The two of them walked down the passageway, and it was a completely different world inside. It was about 200 or 300 square meters, very spacious, and extremely luxuriously decorated. A fat man, who weighed 200 kilograms, was sitting on a comfortable leather sofa and slowly drinking red wine. He was the boss here, Fat Dragon. Although this guy looked white and fat, like a Maitreya Buddha, his means were extremely cruel. He specialized in the sale of human organs. After seeing Lu Fei, Fat Dragon nodded with a smile and said, "Dr. Lu, the situation is urgent. We have to hurry. I don't know what's wrong with the police recently. They are investigating more and more closely. I heard that they are looking for a Taoist priest, but it's not good for us. It won't be long before they find us. So we have to finish this business as soon as possible, then leave Jiangnan City and hide for a few days. I have just informed the buyer. They will send someone to pick up the goods in 2 hours, which means you have 2 hours. You have to finish the work as soon as possible." Lu Fei nodded and asked, "How many more do I need to deal with?" "There are 3 in total. At your speed, you should be able to finish them in less than 2 hours. Fat Dragon stood up and pushed open a door next to him. Inside was a fully equipped operating room. There were 3 people tied on the ground next to it. 2 of them were middle-aged men who looked like vagrants, and the other was a little girl of 5 or 6 years old. They were looking at them in horror. Lu Fei frowned and asked, "Fat Dragon, why are there children?" Fat Dragon glanced at him and said with a smile, "Why? Dr. Lu, you don't have the heart, do you? Over the years, you have removed at least 80 organs, if not 100. One more child won't make a difference." He walked over, patted the little girl's cheek and said, "You don't know, this child is custom-made. She is very valuable. Even 10 adults can't compare to her. There is a rich man's daughter in the Middle East who has a serious liver disease and needs a liver transplant. She is about the same age as this child, so he offered us 10 million to buy a matching liver. Remember, it's in US dollars. For this business, we spent a lot of effort and checked a lot of information. Only from a physical examination report did we know that this child's liver was very suitable for the rich man's daughter, so we found an opportunity to kidnap her. Lu Fei's face showed a trace of pity and he said, but, the smile on Fat Dragon's face suddenly disappeared. He interrupted him and said, no buts. If I hadn't helped you change your master, your hands would have been cut off. How can you be a doctor? How can you support yourself? After taking a breath, his voice softened a lot and he said with great vicissitudes, although we killed a person here, we also saved a person over there. From this point of view, it's not a sin. As long as this business is done, according to the 10% commission, you can get a benefit of $1 million, which is enough for you to live happily for a while. After so many years, I'm also tired. After this business, I'm going to wash my hands of it completely. I'm going to South Africa with my brothers to buy a piece of land and be happy as a farmer. Lu Fei hesitated for a moment. Thinking of the colorful US dollars, he didn't speak in the end. Well, doctor, hurry up. We don't have much time. Fat Dragon waved his hand and two people immediately came over. They threw the little girl on the operating table like goods, took off her coat, and fixed her hands and feet on the special steel rings of the operating table. The little girl's face was full of horror. She struggled desperately, but her body was too weak to play any role at all. Lu Fei walked to the operating table and looked at the little girl. Then he sighed, took a white towel, grabbed a bottle of pink medicine, and poured it on the towel. Then he covered the little girl's mouth with his hand. This was a strong anesthetic. After about a minute, the little girl completely lost consciousness and lay on the operating table as if she was asleep. Lu Fei opened the operating box next to him and took out a shiny scalpel. After a moment of hesitation, he inserted it into the little girl's chest. At this moment, the door was kicked open from the outside. Then there was a flash of cold light. Lu Fei's left hand holding the scalpel felt cold, and then it fell to the ground with a clatter. My hand, my golden left hand. Lu Fei held the elbow of his left hand with his right hand. Looking at the left hand that was still holding the scalpel on the ground, he howled wildly. It could be said that this left hand was everything to him. After losing his left hand, he would have no value. People like you don't deserve to be doctors, let alone to hold a scalpel. Seeing that this animal was going to kill a little girl, Qin Haodong was furious. He waved the 1,000 blades again. Lu Fei screamed and his right hand fell to the ground. Fat Dragon reacted and hurriedly shouted to his men, kill him for me. Several thugs in the room took out their pistols, but before they could pull the trigger, the pistols had fallen to the ground along with their hands. In such a small space, the 1,000 blades was 100 times faster than they could shoot. In the blink of an eye, these people's hands were cut off, including Fat Dragon's 2 fat pig hands. After Qin Haodong parted ways with Fang Yuqi, he had been quietly following Lu Fei. Soon after Lu Fei came in, he killed the people outside. Originally, he wanted to wait for Nalan Wuxia, but when he saw that Lu Fei was going to kill an innocent little girl, he had to take the lead. At this time, there was a noisy sound of footsteps outside. Nalan Wuxia rushed in with a team of policemen. Looking at the fallen arms and the wailing people, she asked, Haodong, what's going on? After a brief introduction of the situation, Qin Haodong pointed to Lu Fei and said, as a doctor, he participated in human organ trafficking and his hands were stained with blood. Now it seems that he is the biggest suspect. He is probably the killer behind the serial murders. Chapter 378. At this time, Lu Fei's arms were bleeding. He was in so much pain that he almost fainted. He wailed and could not care about anything else. Nalan Wuxia looked at the people present and said to Qin Haodong, stop their bleeding first, or it will be troublesome if they die. Qin Haodong raised his hand and poked several acupoints on Lu Fei's shoulders. His arms immediately stopped bleeding, and then he helped Fat Dragon and the others stop bleeding. At this time, a policeman who had searched the room ran over and said, Captain, we found a lot of living organs in the incubator, including hearts and livers. There are about 20 pieces. Nalan Wuxia said, immediately organize people to send these organs to the hospital for preservation. Take the victims to the police station first, and arrest all the criminals. He pointed to Fat Dragon and said, "This is the chief criminal. He and Lu Fei stay and ask about it." Nalan Wuxia nodded and arranged for all the thugs under Fat Dragon to be taken away. Only Fat Dragon and Lu Fei were left in the room. Time was urgent, so Qin Haodong did not talk nonsense with them. He directly used mind manipulating and asked Fat Dragon, "Did you do the murders in Jiangnan City a few days ago?" Hearing his question, Nalan Wuxia immediately became nervous. After so many days of work, there was not much progress in the case. If it was really Fat Dragon and his people who did it, they would finally have an explanation for the general public. But Fat Dragon shook his head and said, "I don't know what you are talking about, but we have never done it in Jiangnan City." Qin Haodong frowned and asked, "If you have never done it in Jiangnan City, where did these organs come from?" Fat Dragon said, "We do human organs. But in order to keep things secret, we never commit crimes in Jiangnan City. These people are all caught from other places. Their organs are cut in Jiangnan City and then sold abroad by sea." Soon it was clear that Fat Dragon and his people were a very well-organized criminal gang. They specialized in human organs. It was a business deal, and the method used to commit the crime was very clever. First of all, they did not commit crimes locally. They all caught some homeless people or people with mental disabilities from other places. After taking them to Jiangnan City, they cut their bodies and sold them directly abroad by sea. Lu Fei was the doctor in charge of the surgery. Every time he completed an operation, he would be given a 10% commission. Since the method of committing the crime is very secretive, it hasn't been discovered by the relevant departments for a long time. Nalan Wuxia and Qin Haodong were disappointed when they heard that these people were not the murderers of the serial murders. But when they thought about it, they had solved such a big case of organ trafficking. Qin Haodong continued to ask, "Where are the people whose organs were cut off by you?" Fat Dragon said, "In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, those who had their organs cut off were directly handed over to the people who picked up the goods and then thrown into the sea to feed the fish." Bastard. For the sake of money, he would even do such a crazy thing. Nalan Wuxia slapped Fat Dragon in the face and called 2 policemen to take him away. She also wanted to use Fat Dragon as bait to catch all the criminals who were waiting to pick up the goods. Qin Haodong walked up to Lu Fei and said in a cold voice, "As a director of surgery, you even did such a thing. Are you still worthy of being called a doctor?" At this time, Qin Haodong had returned to his original appearance. He was not the image of Tang Feng, so Lu Fei did not recognize who he was. He thought he was a plainclothes policeman of the police force. He said, "I had no choice. A few years ago, I lost all my property in gambling and owed millions of yuan in debt. If I didn't pay the money back, those people would cut off my hands. Later, Fat Dragon and others paid the debt for me, so I followed them." Qin Haodong used mind manipulating again and asked, "Do you know about the murders that happened in Jiangnan City a few days ago? Does it have anything to do with you?" Lu Fei shook his head and said, "I don't know. I didn't do it." "Then why did you go to the archives of Guangren Hospital to look up the patient's files? Does it have anything to do with organ trafficking?" Lu Fei said, "It doesn't matter. It's a normal job. Although working with Fat Dragon and others can bring me a lot of income, I still need a formal job to deceive people so that I won't be suspected." Qin Haodong looked back at Nalan Wuxia and said, "It seems that Lu Fei didn't do it. It has nothing to do with him." Speaking of this, his heart sank. There were 2 key suspects before, one was Lu Fei, and the other was Fang Yuqi. Now that Lu Fei had been ruled out, there was only Fang Yuqi left. From the bottom of his heart, he really didn't want this beautiful female doctor to be the murderer. Nalan Wuxia asked someone to take Lu Fei away and then said, "It's nothing. At least we also solved a big case this time. We got rid of a gang that sold human organs. These people have done so many atrocious things, the seriousness of the case is much greater than a murder case. Qin Haodong said, there is still a day left tomorrow. Let's focus on Fang Yuqi. I really hope she didn't do it. Naylan Wuxia said, why? Is it because she is beautiful? No matter how beautiful she is she more beautiful than you? Qin Haodong smiled at Naylan Wuxia and then said seriously, I don't want it to be her, because I think she is a good doctor. Naylan Wuxia was just about to speak when her cell phone suddenly rang. After answering the phone, her expression changed greatly. She said to Qin Haodong, oh no, the fourth murder has happened. Qin Haodong was also shocked and said, how could it be so fast? Shouldn't there be a day left? Naylan Wuxia said, a crime every 3 days is just our speculation based on the previous time. It seems that the speculation is wrong. The criminals don't commit crimes according to this rule. Qin Haodong said, let's go and have a look. Maybe we can find clues to solve the case. Naylan Wuxia divided the criminal police force into 2 parts. One part waited for the organ trafficking gang to pick up the goods, and the other part hurried to the crime scene with them. It was nearly 2:00 in the morning. When they arrived at the scene, the police in the area had already pulled up the cordon to protect the scene. The crime scene was a large hardware store. The store owner, who was about 50 years old, was shivering next to it. His face was pale, and it seemed that he was really scared. The 2 of them stated their identities and entered the cordon. The strong smell of blood assaulted their nostrils, and they saw a young man in his 30s lying in a pool of blood. There was a large hole in his chest, and the forensic doctor was busy performing an autopsy. Naylan Wuxia asked, what's going on? The forensic doctor looked up and saw that the captain had arrived. He said, it's not much different from the previous cases, and the method is basically the same. But this time, the victim's lungs were lost. The estimated time of death was 2 hours ago. That son of AB*TCH. Naylan Wuxia cursed angrily, but she couldn't lose her mind at this time. She turned around and asked the police on duty, who called the police? Who saw the first scene? It was me. The store owner walked over, trembling. Naylan Wuxia said, don't be afraid. Give me a brief introduction of the situation. The store owner said, many relatives came to my hometown today. After dinner, I didn't have enough room at home, so I was going to spend the night in the store. I didn't expect that as soon as I opened the door, I would see a dead man on the ground. There was blood all over the ground. I was scared to death, so I called the police immediately. What about the time? How long has it been since the police called the police? The store owner took out his mobile phone, looked at it and said, about an hour now. At this time, Qin Haodong also finished checking the scene. There was a bright red soul-calming talisman drawn on the floor tile about half a meter above the dead man's head. Similarly, there was no soul under the soul-calming talisman. After Naylan Wuxia learned about the situation, she immediately issued an order to quickly check the surveillance videos in the store and within a radius of 500 meters, focusing on the suspects within the last 2 hours. The store owner said, there is a surveillance camera in my store. In order to prevent thieves, I installed a super high-definition camera with night vision function. Naylan Wuxia said eagerly, take us to have a look. The store owner took Naylan Wuxia and the others to his room. When they opened the door, they saw that the computer on the table had been broken into pieces. The main case was opened, and the hard disk used to store the surveillance video data was removed. It seems that the perpetrator was prepared in this regard and took all the surveillance data away. At this time, a technician came over with a laptop. Captain, I have connected to the surveillance website of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. I can access the surveillance information of the cameras of the Municipal Public Security Bureau at any time. There is a surveillance point opposite the hardware store that we set up. Quick, show me the data. Naylan Wuxia said eagerly. Although the data from the surveillance point of the Municipal Public Security Bureau could only show the outside scene, it could always check whether there were any suspicious people passing by. The technician turned on the computer and retrieved the data stored in the surveillance video opposite the hardware store. Soon, the video began to play. Since the selected time period started at midnight, there were few pedestrians and vehicles on the street. In order to save time, Nalan Wuxia directly asked the technician to speed up the video to 10 times faster. The video continued to play, and soon a figure flashed across the screen. Qin Haodong suddenly, his face changed and he cried, "Stop, it's here. Slow down the speed and replay." The technician turned the picture back, and a woman slowly appeared on the screen. It was Fang Yuqi, who had just broken up with him. At this time, Fang Yuqi was no longer as calm and composed as she had been during the day. She was holding a black bag in her hand, looking flustered and in a hurry. Soon, she disappeared from the camera. Qin Haodong's heart sank. What he had been worried about had happened. Lu Fei's suspicion had been ruled out, and Fang Yuqi happened to appear near the scene of the crime. Now it seemed that she was probably the murderer. Nalan Wuxia was obviously aware of this. She and Qin Haodong looked at each other and nodded. Nalan Wuxia turned to his men and said, "Fang Yuqi is a doctor from Guangren Hospital. Let the technical department locate her immediately and arrest her." Fang Yuqi's phone number had been filed with the technical department, and her location was soon locked. About half an hour later, she was taken to the interrogation room of the criminal police unit. Qin Haodong had changed his face and sat with Nalan Wuxia in the interrogation position. Fang Yuqi was sitting on an iron stool. Her face was pale and flustered. Her long white dress was torn in several places, and there were dark red bloodstains on it. Nalan Wuxia looked at her and asked, "Dr. Fang, I didn't expect to meet you here again." Fang Yuqi just looked at Nalan Wuxia with a complicated expression and said nothing. Nalan Wuxia asked, "Tell me, what did you do about an hour ago?" I. Fang Yuqi struggled for a while and cried, "Officer Nalan, I surrender." Chapter 379. Hearing her words, Nalan Wuxia's expression suddenly changed, and her heart beat wildly. She asked again, "Are you sure you did this case?" "I did it, but Officer Nalan." Fang Yuqi was about to say something when the door of the interrogation room opened. A scout came in from the outside and put a transparent plastic bag on the interrogation room table. There was a scalpel in it, with some dried blood on it. The investigator said, "Captain, this was found in her house." Qin Haodong sighed inwardly. The bloody clothes, the bloody scalpel, and Fang Yuqi's confession had basically locked in the facts of the case. It seemed that she really did it. Of the two surgical directors of Guangren Hospital, Lu Fei went astray because of gambling, and Fang Yuqi killed people for unknown reasons. Nalan Wuxia lifted the plastic bag and asked, "Is this yours?" Fang Yuqi nodded. "It's mine." Nalan Wuxia asked, "Did you kill them with this knife?" "What? He's dead?" Fang Yuqi panicked again and cried, "Impossible, it's impossible, he can't be dead." Nalan Wuxia said angrily, "What are you talking about? His lungs have been removed by you. How could he not die? Tell me, where did you put the lungs that you removed from the deceased?" Fang Yuqi said in astonishment, "Officer, what are you talking about? What removal? What lungs? I only made 2 cuts on his arm. How could he die? 2 cuts on the arm, what nonsense are you talking about?" Nalan Wuxia snapped, "Fang Yuqi, you've been caught red-handed. The evidence is sufficient. You still have the blood of the deceased on you. You can't deny it even if you want to. Confess your crime." Fang Yuqi said anxiously, "I can confess and fight for leniency, but I really didn't remove his lungs. I just made 2 cuts on his arms." Nalan Wuxia still wanted to say something, but Qin Haodong had already realized that something was wrong. He said, "Let me ask." He turned to look at Fang Yuqi and asked with mind manipulating, "Did you do the murder in the hardware store?" Fang Yuqi said, "What murder? I don't know. I really didn't kill anyone." Then why did you go to the hardware store at midnight? Fong Yuqi said, I went to dinner with my friends tonight and went home to watch TV for a while. I wanted to take a bath and go to bed, but I suddenly found that I was on my period and the sanitary pads at home were all used up. I had to go out to buy sanitary pads. I passed by a hardware store at that time. Qin Haodong asked, why didn't you drive when you came out alone at night? Aren't you afraid of danger? Fong Yuqi said, there was a convenience store not far from my house, so I didn't drive. I wanted to buy something and go home, but it was too late and the store was closed. I know there's a 24-hour convenience store near the hardware store, so I went there to buy some pads. I didn't think it was too far, so I didn't go back to get my car. At this point, Qin Haodong was sure that Fong Yuqi had not done this case, but at the same time, he was very puzzled. What was the blood on the scalpel? Why did Fong Yuqi just shout to turn herself in? He asked again, what's with the blood on your scalpel? Why did you just say to turn yourself in? Fong Yuqi said, I've been living alone all these years, and sometimes I'm very afraid to go out, so I often carry a scalpel in my bag. On my way back after buying sanitary pads, I suddenly met a drunk hooligan. He held me and was about to pull me into the nearby bushes, trying to rape me. I was so scared at that time that I took out the scalpel and made 2 cuts on his arm, but it was just 2 cuts. I didn't stab him in the fatal part, and I didn't want to kill him. The hooligan let me go after he was stabbed, and then I ran away. As soon as I got home, I was caught by the police. I said to turn myself in because I stabbed the hooligan, but because he wanted to molest me, I stabbed him. After listening to Fong Yuqi, Qin Haodong breathed a sigh of relief. Although the plot was a bit melodramatic, it made complete sense. Although the case had not been solved, he was very pleased that a good doctor had been saved. He turned to Nalan Wuxia and said, it seems that you've got the wrong person. Dr. Fong didn't do this case. Nalan Wuxia leaned back in her chair, patted her forehead, and said, it's too much of a coincidence. At this time, the technician pushed the door open and came in again. He said to Nalan Wuxia, Captain, we just made a blood type comparison. The blood on the suspect's body is the same as the blood on the scalpel, but not the same as the blood of the deceased. So the preliminary judgment is that she is not the murderer of this murder. Nalan Wuxia said, although Dr. Fong stabbed someone, it was self-defense. Arrange for someone to send her back immediately, and then hand over the case to the police station. Let them go to the nearby hospital to search for the hooligan. We don't have the police force to deal with such a small case. After arranging the other work, Nalan Wuxia took Qin Haodong back to her office. After entering the room, she slumped in the chair and didn't want to move. This case had been tossed around for so long. Even though she was a warrior of covert power, her energy was limited. She hadn't slept for more than 2 days, and now she felt exhausted. Are you tired? Qin Haodong came behind her, massaged her shoulders and neck, and used greenwood genuine qi to comb her tired body. It's so comfortable. Nalan Wuxia gently moaned and directly leaned her body in Qin Haodong's arms, enjoying the rare warmth and comfort. After a while, she opened her eyes and said, Haodong, your technique is really great. I really want to be massaged by you for a lifetime. Not only was Qin Haodong's massage technique unique, but the most important thing was that the greenwood genuine qi was extremely pure. In just a short time, her fatigue had been swept away, and she had regained her energy. You can do it for a lifetime, but my fee is very expensive. Qin Haodong said with a smile. How expensive can it be? Is it enough to marry me? Nalan Wuxia said as she stretched her neck and looked up at Qin Haodong. Under this unique posture, the 2 peaks on her chest looked unusually high. Her neckline was exposed. Well. Who do you think the murderer of this case is? Qin Haodong quickly changed the subject. Faced with the feelings of so many girls, he didn't know how to deal with it. Sometimes he fantasized that it would be great if he were in the cultivation world, where he could marry as many girls as he wanted. Unfortunately, this was Huaxia, where monogamy was practiced. Even if he wanted to, he didn't know what these girls would think. Nalan Wuxia rolled her eyes at him bitterly, sat up straight and said, "This case is really a headache. It's neither Lu Fei nor Fang Yuqi. Could it be the old Taoist who escaped?" Qin Haodong said, "Even if it has something to do with the old Taoist, it can't be him alone, because the old Taoist can't get the information of the patients in the hospital." Nalan Wuxia said, "Do you think it's possible that the old Taoist colluded with the people in the hospital to commit the crime?" "It's possible, but the people in the hospital not only have to check the files, but also have to be responsible for the organ removal of the deceased, and he is a left-handed doctor. At present, only Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi meet these two conditions, but neither of them is the old Taoist. Could it be that we're in the wrong direction? It's just a coincidence that the three people were treated in Guangren Hospital. The organs were removed by someone else, or a doctor from another hospital." Nalan Wuxia thought for a moment and said, "It's very unlikely, but it's still possible. Now I'll confirm with the technical department. If the deceased was still treated in Guangren Hospital, then the possibility of coincidence is completely ruled out." After that, she picked up her mobile phone and dialed the number of the technical department. She asked, "This is Nalan Wuxia. Have you found out the situation of the deceased? Is there any useful information?" The person on the phone said, "The deceased is a 28-year-old male, a resident of the Dongqing district of Jiangnan City. There is no information related to the case." Nalan Wuxia asked, "Is there any record of his hospitalization in Guangren Hospital?" The person on the phone inquired and said, "Yes, the deceased had an operation in Guangren Hospital last July due to appendicitis." After hanging up the phone, Nalan Wuxia turned to Qin Haodong and said, "Did you hear that? This shows that we're in the right direction. The murderer must be a doctor from Guangren Hospital, or one of the gang members is a doctor from Guangren Hospital. It seems that you have to continue to work undercover there." Qin Haodong frowned and said, "But left-handed surgeons have gone to the archives to check the patient's information. So far, only Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi have been suspected. Who else could it be?" Nalan Wuxia said, "There must be something we haven't found. As long as we find this flaw, the case will be solved. I'll think about it when I go to the hospital tomorrow. Let's analyze the case from another angle." Qin Haodong said, "Have you found that there is a pattern in this case?" Nalan Wuxia said, "What? Now even the time of the crime has changed. I can't see any pattern. Now the criminal has killed 4 people in succession. The organs cut off are the heart, liver, kidney, lung. If you add the spleen, then it is exactly the 5 organs of a human. Is this a coincidence or intentional? Could it be that he had killed so many people just to collect the 5 types of organs? According to this pattern, the next organ he cut off is likely to be the spleen of the deceased." Nalan Wuxia said, "If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have noticed it. I thought he killed people just to sell the organs. Now it seems that it's not that simple. And from the 4 cases, the money of the deceased was not lost, which shows that the murderer did not kill for money. Generally speaking, there are only a few reasons for killing, such as love killing, revenge killing, or killing for money. At present, these reasons are not applicable to this serial murder case. So what is the purpose of his killing? Is it just because he is psychopathic and thinks it's fun to kill?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "That's impossible. If it's just psychopathic killing, he can just find a few people to kill. It's impossible to go to Guangzhou Hospital to get the records of the archives, let alone to remove the organs in the order of the 5 organs. At first glance, collecting the 5 organs is the purpose of the murderer. As for what he can do after collecting them, whether it's just for fun or for other purposes, only the murderer knows." Nalan Wuxia said, "From this, it is very likely that the spleen of the next victim will be removed, but this is not very useful for solving the case. If we can know where he committed the crime, or who he is going to kill, it will be good." After listening to her, Qin Haodong's heart suddenly moved, as if he had touched something, but he could not be sure for a while. Read literature. 88,106. Chapter 380. Qin Haodong thought for a long time, but still couldn't find the key to the problem. Seeing that he was silent, Nalan Wuxia asked, "What are you thinking about?" Qin Haodong said, "I seem to have figured out the key to the problem, but I can't penetrate it." Nalan Wuxia said, "Solving a case also depends on luck. Go back and have a rest. Continue to work undercover in Guangren Hospital tomorrow. I think the key is still there." Qin Haodong nodded, disguised as Tang Feng again, and returned to the hotel where he lived. The next day, Qin Haodong came to Guangren Hospital to work and found that there were 2 more nurses here. It seemed that the hospital had redivided the traditional Chinese medicine department. Hua Zian was full of smiles. When he saw Qin Haodong, he said, "Little brother, I'll leave it to you today. I have something to do. I used to be the only doctor in the whole department, and I had to stay in the hospital all day. Now, finally, someone can see patients for me. I'm going to see my grandson." He was telling the truth. He used to be the only doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine department. In order not to let the department close, he had to stay here every day. After that, the old man packed up and left without waiting for Qin Haodong's consent. Looking at Hua Zian's back, Qin Haodong was amused. He had been in the hospital for too long. He would give the old man a few days off. He made himself a pot of tea, sat in front of the booth, and waited for the patients to come. But the patients didn't come. 7 or 8 people in white coats came. Some of them had gloomy faces, some raised their chins, and some had sinister smiles. In short, they seemed to have bad intentions. Qin Haodong picked up the teacup and took a sip. He looked at these people and said, "Are you here to see a doctor? If you want to see a doctor, you have to register first." "What illness?" "We are doctors," Wang Yao said. A stout middle-aged doctor said, "Besides, traditional Chinese medicine is a trick. We won't come to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor even if we want to see a doctor." Qin Haodong frowned slightly. He was sure that these people were looking for trouble. "This is the traditional Chinese medicine department. What are you doing here instead of seeing a doctor?" The short and fat man said, "Let me introduce you first. This is Director Zhang from the dermatology department, Director Li from the respiratory department, Director Zhao from the digestive department, and Director Zhou from the andrology department. I am Director Dong Kai from the colorectal department." Dong Kai was full of arrogance when he spoke. He raised his chin as if they were all medical experts high above and Qin Haodong should look up to them. After he finished the introduction, Qin Haodong's expression changed, showing a look of understanding. However, before Dong Kai could be proud, he heard Qin Haodong say, "It turns out to be Director Dong of the colorectal department. I'm sorry. No wonder your words are so bad. Do you always open your mouth when treating patients?" Dong Kai almost choked to death on his own saliva. Between the two of us, whose words were worse? These words were too choking. Dong Kai blushed and wanted to say something, but he was pulled behind him by Director Zhang of the dermatology department. "Tang Feng, right? We didn't ask you to come here today to bicker." Qin Haodong said lightly, "It's up to you. You can bicker or fight. As long as you ask, I will accompany you to the end." Naturally, he would not have a good attitude towards these people who were looking for trouble. Director Li of the respiratory department said, "Tang Feng, what's with your attitude? We are all chief physicians of the hospital. We are your seniors. You should respect us when you see us." Qin Haodong said, "Forget it. Don't talk about these useless things. What are you doing here? You must know that you don't deserve my respect at all." Director Zhao of the digestive department said, "Since you said so, we won't beat around the bush. Today, we are here to inform you that traditional Chinese medicine is not scientific. We want you to resign and close the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. Don't discredit Guangzhou Hospital." Director Zhou of the andrology department said, "I know. Yesterday, you happened to give a patient a dose of traditional Chinese medicine and completed an operation. In fact, what does that have to do with your traditional Chinese medicine? It was our Western medicine that saved the patient. Your black medicine soup didn't have any effect at all. These people were the backbone doctors of Guangren Hospital and also the core strength of the hospital. Like Lu Fei before, these people all boycotted traditional Chinese medicine and often shouted for the hospital to cancel the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. It was said that there was a new doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. Yesterday, he was in the limelight in the operating room, which made these people very dissatisfied. Today, they came to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic together to fight for Western medicine. That was to say, today they came to provoke the hospital collectively. Qin Haodong's face was completely gloomy. These people didn't understand traditional Chinese medicine at all. After learning Western medicine for a few days, they came back and shouted that traditional Chinese medicine was not scientific and wanted to cancel it. Director Zhang said again, Tang Feng, you don't have to be unhappy. We just want to teach you a truth. Traditional Chinese medicine is originally pseudoscience. Judging from your age, you should have gone to school, right? Think about it, Western medicine is divided into dozens of disciplines, and the medical experts of each discipline specialize in a particular field. As for traditional Chinese medicine, there are no divisions at all. Think about how much energy a person has, how can he cure all kinds of diseases? This is the legendary saying, biting off more than one can chew, big but not refined. Director Li then said, in addition, Western medicine has countless scientific instruments as the foundation. We can do all kinds of examinations for patients and achieve accurate diagnosis and treatment. Traditional Chinese medicine, which of the legendary looking, listening, questioning and feeling the pulse can stand up to scrutiny? To put it bluntly, they are all tricks to deceive people. You're still shouting about meridians and qi all day long. Can't you do something real? It's completely pseudoscience. If you have the ability, show me a meridian or dissect an acupoint. It's a big joke that grass roots and bark can cure diseases. Now developed countries in Europe and the United States have banned traditional Chinese medicine. You're still here to fool the people of Huaxia. Where's your conscience? These people surrounded Qin Haodong and criticized traditional Chinese medicine one after another, as if they represented science and justice. Looking at these clown-like faces, Qin Haodong suddenly lost interest. He had nothing to say to these people who didn't understand traditional Chinese medicine at all. When these people were almost done, he said lightly, "Are you finished? If you are, please go out." These people talked for a long time, but Qin Haodong didn't respond at all. It was as if he had punched the air with all his strength. At this moment, a middle-aged man in his 50s appeared in front of the consulting room. He was a little confused when he saw the room full of white coats. He asked doubtfully, "Is the consulting room of traditional Chinese medicine here? I want to see a doctor." Two young nurses had been standing silently by the side. They didn't dare to participate in this kind of fight between doctors. Seeing the patient, they stepped forward and said, "Yes, this is the consulting room of traditional Chinese medicine. Please go inside." The middle-aged man stepped into the room, but before he came to Qin Haodong's desk, Dong Kai stopped him and said, "What's wrong with you?" "My stomach doesn't feel well." "I haven't eaten for several days," the middle-aged man said, pressing his stomach. Dong Kai said, "Stomach disease is not a trivial matter. I advise you to go through a scientific examination. Western medicine is much better than traditional Chinese medicine in this regard." Director Zhao of the Department of Digestive Medicine happens to be here. He is an expert in treating stomach disease in our hospital. You can ask him to take a look at you. The middle-aged man said hesitantly, "But I'm here to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor." Director Zhao came over and said, "Brother, you have to believe in science. How can you see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor for stomach disease? Do you think someone can find your problem just by touching your wrist? Just a few simple pricks of needles can cure your stomach problem? Or do you think the smelly and bitter traditional Chinese medicine soup is more enjoyable to drink? I'm responsible to tell you that stomach disease must go through a systematic examination to see if there is a tumor in your stomach, whether there is cancer, whether there is inflammation, and what kind of disease it is. Only in this way can you be treated systematically and fundamentally cured. Oh. All right then. The middle-aged man nodded as if he was frightened by Director Zhao's words. Tell me about your symptoms. The middle-aged man said, I just have a stomachache. I feel that my stomach is turning upside down. I have no appetite and can't eat anything. Director Zhao said, is the pain more intense within an hour after the meal, and then it gradually subsides? The middle-aged man nodded and said, yes, that's it. I can basically determine that you have a gastric ulcer now. Go to the Department of Digestive Medicine for a systematic examination to rule out other possibilities. Then I'll decide on a treatment plan for you when I go back. Okay, thank you, doctor. The middle-aged man turned around and left the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room, walking in the direction of the Department of Digestive Medicine. Dong Kai looked at Qin Haodong proudly and said, see? People's eyes are bright. The patient's final choice is science. He had thought that the young man in front of him would be angry because he had robbed the patient of the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room, but he was still calm and had no reaction. They didn't know that in Qin Haodong's eyes, treatment was also a kind of fate. The man just chose Western medicine and missed the opportunity to let Emperor Greenwood treat him. It could only be the man's loss. There was nothing to be angry about. Just when these experts felt a little at a loss, another young man in his 30s appeared in front of the consulting room. After entering the door, the young man glanced at these white coats and said, Doctor, I'm a computer programmer. Recently, my cervical spondylosis has become more and more serious. I feel dizzy and nauseous. Who can help me? Director's son of the orthopedics department came forward and said, Young man, since you are a computer programmer, you should know science. How can you see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor when you are sick? You should see a Western medicine doctor. The young man was slightly stunned. It was the first time that he had seen such a doctor. He said, I heard that the massage of traditional Chinese medicine is very effective in relieving cervical spondylosis, so I came to have a look. There is no scientific basis for this statement. I tell you, the cervical vertebra is a dense area of nerves. Don't massage it casually. If you meet an unreliable doctor, it will sometimes lead to aggravation of the condition and even lifelong paralysis. Then he pointed to Qin Haodong and said, he is the doctor in charge of the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room. He just came to the hospital the day before yesterday. He is 30 years old this year. Do you dare to let him massage you? The young man glanced at Qin Haodong and felt that he was younger than him. He suddenly lost his confidence and said, well, I'd better see a Western medicine doctor. After that, he left the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room again. After persuading the patient to leave, Director's son turned his head to look at Qin Haodong, thinking that this should be some kind of response. However, Qin Haodong was not angry. On the contrary, there was a faint smile on his face. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then he said with a smile, thank you, great experts and directors, for coming here to help me treat the patient. I'm a little embarrassed that I don't work for the hospital's salary. To download the latest TXT ebook of this book, please click Reading on the mobile phone, post a book review for the convenience of reading next time. You can click Collect below to record this time. Chapter 380. You can see it next time when you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 381. These people looked at each other and were surprised by Qin Haodong's reaction. They had discussed it before they came today. The basic strategy was to provoke Hua Zi, and then the two sides would have a further conflict. They believed that the hospital would eventually be on their side. After all, each of these people was a doctor of medicine who had studied abroad. They were the directors of various departments, the authorities of various industries, and the core strength of the hospital. It was because of this confidence that they looked down on traditional Chinese medicine and wanted to push it out of Guangren Hospital. But now the situation had changed. The hot-tempered old man Hua was not here, and this young man was even calmer than the old man. He did not respond to their continuous provocations. If 2 couldn't do it, then 3. If 3 couldn't do it, then 4. Let's see how long you can hold on. These people decided to continue the game so that Qin Haodong would have no patience to see. Let's see how long he could hold on. At this time, another patient in his 60s appeared in front of the door. Doctor, I have a headache. Who can help me? Dong Kai immediately greeted him and cried, Headache? Why don't you go to see a doctor of Western medicine? Why are you in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic? I believe in traditional Chinese medicine. I think traditional Chinese medicine can cure the root cause. The old man said. Old man, you are really muddle-headed. Traditional Chinese medicine can cure the root cause. It's all used to deceive people. Dong Kai said with saliva flying. Headache? What's the use of traditional Chinese medicine? Have you heard of Hua Tuo? He is a legendary doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, but even he couldn't cure Chow Chow's headache. Do you think traditional Chinese medicine can cure your headache? The old man hesitated. He felt that Dong Kai's words seemed to make sense. Go to the neurology department. Headache is not a trivial matter. If there is a brain tumor, it will be troublesome. Find it early and treat it early. Dong Kai directly pushed the old man out of the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. He turned around and looked at Qin Haodong proudly. But Qin Haodong did not even look at him and was still leisurely drinking his tea. What the hell, what kind of person is he? He's really useless. Why doesn't he get angry? Dong Kai was surprised and looked at Qin Haodong with disdain. Not only him, but also the 2 nurses next to him looked at Qin Haodong with disdain. They felt that the young doctor in front of them was so cowardly that he didn't even dare to let out a fart when Qin Haodong was riding on his neck. Doctor, please take a look at my son. What's wrong with him? As they spoke, an old woman in her 50s or 60s walked in with a young man in his 20s. Both of them were dressed in shabby clothes and seemed to be poor people at the bottom of society. Dong Kai came over again and asked, What happened to your son? Where do you feel uncomfortable? The old lady said, I don't know why my son suddenly got a serious skin disease since the day before yesterday. His entire lower body is black and blue. Dong Kai repeated the same trick and said, You should see Western medicine for skin diseases. Western medicine is more professional and scientific in this regard. Chinese medicine is not reliable at all. Director Zhang of the dermatology department of our hospital is here. Now I'll ask him to take a look at you. As he spoke, he turned around and pulled Director Zhang over. Unexpectedly, when the old woman saw Director Zhang, she said, My son went to see him yesterday. He asked my son to do a blood test and a urine test. After a round of tests, he didn't find anything wrong with him. The cost was more than 1,000 yuan, which is half of my son's salary. At this time, Director Zhang also recognized the old lady and her son. He said awkwardly, Sister, you can't blame me. Your son doesn't just have a skin disease. There should be other diseases. But don't worry. Experts from all departments of our hospital are here today. We can give your son a joint consultation. We will definitely find the cause. Dong Kai followed and said, Yes, expert consultation. This has always been the advantage of our Western medicine. Everyone, come and see what disease this young man has. After he finished speaking, the experts gathered in a circle and surrounded the young man in the middle. They said, Take off your pants and let us see what's wrong with you. Since so many experts were here to treat her son, the old lady immediately said excitedly, Yes, son. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Let the doctors have a look. The young man hesitated for a moment and finally took off his pants. They saw that everything below his belly button had turned black and blue. Even his second master was not spared. The color had spread to his ankles. Looking at this situation, everyone frowned. Young man, does your skin hurt? No. Is it itchy? Is it numb? No. The experts asked a few questions in succession. The young man's skin looked very scary, but it did not hurt, itch or numb. Although they were all experts, none of them had seen such symptoms. Seeing the serious expressions on the faces of these doctors, the old lady hurriedly asked, "Doctors, what's wrong with my son? Is he seriously ill?" Director Zhao of the gastroenterology department said, "Young man, did you eat something dirty? I feel like you're poisoned." The old lady said, "That's impossible. We poor children don't often go to restaurants like you city people. We eat at home every day. We eat plain tea and rice, and I eat the same as my son. How come I'm fine?" Well, Director Zhao was speechless for a moment. Director Zhang of the dermatology department said, "Could it be an allergy? Did you come into contact with any allergens?" The young man said, "I work on the construction site every day and face bricks and cement. There are no allergens. If I were allergic, I would have been allergic long ago. Moreover, my skin is only black below my waist. If I were allergic, my whole body would have changed color. Besides, didn't you ask me to screen for allergens yesterday? There was no result." Director Zhou of the andrology department said, "Young man, do you have any dirty sex? Did you get sexually transmitted diseases?" Since these experts were speaking in such a disorderly manner, they were simply making wild guesses. The young man also lost his patience. He pulled up his pants and said angrily, "Bullsh *T, you are the one who has sexually transmitted diseases. Your whole family has sexually transmitted diseases." Director Zhou said discontentedly, "We're giving you a consultation. What's your attitude?" The young man said angrily, "Consultation my ass. I think you are all quacks. You're just making wild guesses. Especially you, it's nonsense. I don't even have a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. How could I have sexually transmitted diseases?" Well, seeing the young man getting angry, everyone was dumbfounded. Originally, they wanted to cure the young man's disease so that Qin Haodong would have no patients to accept. However, no one could find the cause of the disease after a long time. It was so shameful. Qin Haodong put down his teacup, stood up and looked at these people with a smile. "What's wrong? Aren't you all experts? Isn't Western medicine very scientific? Why can't you cure his disease?" Director Zhang was stunned, but he still bit the bullet and said, "This is just a preliminary diagnosis. If you want to make a diagnosis, you need to go through a careful examination with sophisticated equipment. Later, young man, come back with me. I'll give him a good examination. I'll definitely find the cause of the disease." Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the young man immediately said excitedly, "Check, check, check. You only know how to check. Yesterday's examination cost me more than 1,000 yuan. You want to check again? Doesn't the examination cost money? Will you pay for the examination for me?" Director Zhang said awkwardly, "Young man, only a precise examination can make a diagnosis. This is science. You have to believe in science." "Science my ass." The young man said angrily, "I worked hard at the construction site for a day and only earned more than 100 yuan. Then I gave all the money to you black-hearted doctors. In the end, you can't cure my disease at all. Quack. You are all quacks." Being pointed at and called quack, Director Zhang was extremely angry and aggrieved, but he had nothing to say. He really couldn't find the cause of the disease. Seeing these people unhappy, Qin Haodong was naturally very happy. He looked at them and said with a smile, aren't you very scientific? Aren't you experts? Why can't you even find the cause? Does it feel good to be scolded as a quack? Dong Kai was stunned and said, "Young man, don't be proud. This is a difficult disease. Even if we can't find the cause, can you find it?" Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "Of course I can. In fact, the disease of the young man is very simple. The reason why you can't find it is because you are arrogant and always hold some bullshit science. You don't stand in the perspective of ordinary people at all." Hearing that Qin Haodong could cure the young man's disease, the old woman said, "Doctor, can you really find the cause of my son's disease?" Qin Haodong said, "I'm not a quack. This disease is very simple. I can cure it in minutes." The old woman said repeatedly, "That's great. Doctor, thank you. I thank you on behalf of my son." Dong Kai immediately said, "Don't listen to his bragging. It's a lie. I don't believe that so many experts can't find the cause. He can do it. Now I'll convince you all." After that, Qin Haodong said to the nurse next to him, "Get a basin of water and a piece of soap." The nurse didn't understand what he meant. Why did he need water and soap to see a doctor? Could these things be used to cure diseases? Dong Kai said sarcastically, "Surnamed Tang, do you think the patient is dirty? You want to wash your hands before seeing the doctor?" Qin Haodong glanced at him and said, "Has anyone ever told you that if you don't speak, you can cover up your ignorance? The more you speak, the more incompetent you are. You." Dong Kai's face turned red. He said angrily, "I don't believe you can cure the young man's disease. Let's see what else you have to say later." Soon, the nurse came over with a basin of water and a piece of soap. Qin Haodong asked the young man to sit on a chair. Then he took off his shoes and put his feet in the basin of water. Dong Kai couldn't help but say sarcastically again, "Tang Feng, is this the so-called foot-soaking treatment in traditional Chinese medicine?" Qin Haodong ignored him. He rolled up the young man's trousers, then sprinkled water on his legs and applied soap. Just when everyone was wondering what he was doing, they suddenly found that the color of the young man's legs began to fade rapidly, revealing the original yellow skin. The old woman asked in surprise, "Doctor, what disease does my son have?" Qin Haodong stood up and said with a smile, "Your son is not sick at all." Director Zhang cried, "That's impossible. I have 20 years of medical experience. If a person is not sick, his skin can't be that color. You must have done something to the water and put illegal drugs in it, right?" Qin Haodong looked at him as if he was looking at a fool. He said jokingly, "Shut up, idiot. How can you be a dermatologist with 20 years of medical experience? Can't you see that it's just his underwear that's faded? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.